Opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Helps if I unmute myself, folks. I was saying good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and I am coming to you live from my home. And our producer Traven is coming to you live from his home, and our guests are going to be joining us live from their home this morning. I cannot start this show without making at least this statement that this is a show about autism. And we're going to be talking about autism today, but autism happens in the world. And sometimes it is important for us to at least touch on things that are obviously happening in the world. And I know that we are a world that is facing trying times because of a pandemic. And we are a nation here in the United States that is in mourning and grief and fear and anger and, how many other things. And I just wanted to say, because we have a platform here that, I've learned from autism to look at behavior and see it as communication. All behavior is communication. And I know that I watched a video of a man who was begging for his life, who was able to communicate, and he was not being listened to. And that everything that was happening was communication. And I think that that was received loud and clear by a lot of people who were here with that this has been communicated before, and it does not seem to be doing any good, the communication, the way it is happening. And I have to say that, I too support and believe that, we're here with that, and change has to come. And I am a big supporter of peaceful protest. We now have protests that is not peaceful. And as we are looking at that and investigating that, we're seeing time and time again that that's being instigated by people who do not have good intentions, who are not about that videotape and what has been happening consistently with the police. And I just want to say, this is not the time to waffle. And for everybody who is concerned about the destruction that is happening, I just want to say to you, you need to be, however much outraged you are about that, you need to be that times 1,000,008 about what is happening and what happened in that street with that police officer's neck on that man as he begged for his life. And if you are not concerned because of your humanity, I want you to check yourself, because we all need to be concerned. Right? But if you aren't, and that does not stir you, let me just say, because I know that a large portion of our audience are people that are on the spectrum or love people on the spectrum. If you can't be concerned for any other reason, you need to get concerned for that reason, because we have seen this happen to members of our community, people who could not communicate and say, I can't breathe. And so get concerned. If you can't believe that our police force needs training and needs to be dealt with differently, then get that way, because we have more than enough evidence. We've taken the data on this, and our police force is not properly trained. And they don't know how to recognize when people can't communicate, and they need to be trained properly so that we do not have the racial profiling that's happening. And that's what I want to say about that. But we're going to continue on, and we're going to talk about autism, because that's what we do here. But I couldn't let that go. I stand in support, and I think we at Autism Live stand in support with peaceful protest. Change has to come. Okay. And we should be outraged. All right, now I'm done. I want to say to you that we're going to be live for this next hour, and we've got a really incredible week this week. You know, I don't know about you, but when I feel like I don't have control over what's happening, the first question I ask, what do I have control over? What could we be doing? How can we be making things better in our corner of the world in lots and lots of different ways? And that's really what this week is power packed with. So we're going to get into that in just a minute, but I've got some really good stuff for you today, and I've got some really good stuff for you this week. In particular, something that I want to highlight is that on Thursday, for the first time ever on the show, we're welcoming Courtney Tarbox. And she's a wonderful BCBA who's getting ready to do a series on ACT, which is Acceptance Commitment Therapy for Kids with ASD. This is the cutting edge of what we should be doing with individuals on the autism spectrum and the autism community, that greater autism community that I'm always talking about, the people who love them. Lots of research has been being done on ACT, Acceptance Commitment Therapy, and they're finding that it helps with all the stress, all the things that we're all experiencing right now. It helps with that. And that when caregivers have this training, that they are better equipped to help their kiddos make more progress. But now Courtney's taking it into another field where she's talking about doing this with our kiddos. You guys have been writing in and saying about how your kids are anxious. They don't want to wear their masks. They're confused. Tune in on Thursday, because she's going to be talking with us about this seminar that she's going to be doing that's absolutely incredible, with just rock stars talking about ACT and giving the tools of ACT to kids with ASD. So this is like groundbreaking stuff here. That's happening on Thursday. So, but the whole week really is designed to help mitigate stress, solve problems in the realm of the things that we can solve, because heaven knows there are things I cannot solve, right? But we work and we move forward, progress, right? So anyway, as I mentioned, this show, we hope to provide information and inspiration. I keep jiggling my camera. Sorry, Traven. That's what we're here for. We hope to reach to that greater autism community that starts with individuals who are on the autism spectrum, of course, and helping them to get the resources that they want and to feel the respect and the dignity and get the jobs that they so richly deserve, right? But then we really are also about everyone who loves these individuals, right? Whether that's a spouse, a parent, an uncle, a friend. You know, if you care about somebody who's on the autism spectrum, we want to help you to get to the resources and the support that you need, as well as that individual, so that we can all get there together. That's what this show is about. We hope that you will write in your questions, your comments, your concerns, rant. If you need a place to say, you know, things, as long as it's not hate speech, you know, we'll take everything else. And remember, you know, we talk about anger. You know, you're entitled to your anger, right? But let's remember that anger is always masking fear. Everybody take a deep breath there, right? So, you know, feel free to write in about what you're angry about, but then let's start to deal with what is the fear beneath the anger, because it's the real thing, and it's where we all need to go eventually. As you're watching things on TV and you're seeing people who are angry, remember that that anger is based in fear, real fear. And that's equally important. Okay, so but write into us. There's lots of ways to write into us. Saying hello to Christina, saying hello to Gamel and Valerie, who's writing to us from Georgia, and Nervinus. Okay, and Amanda. And Amanda asked the question, is Courtney Tarbox related to Jonathan? In fact, she is married to him. I had said on Friday, you guys will recognize the name. This is Dr. Jonathan Tarbox's wife, Courtney Tarbox. Isn't that super cool? So how wonderful is that? I got to be with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox just a couple of weeks ago. He was graduating a class from USC, because, you know, he teaches at USC now. And he was graduating a wonderful class of new BCBAs who have their master's degree in applied behavior analysis. And I got to be the keynote speaker. It was like one of the greatest thrills of my life. And I got to be there with Dr. Tarbox, who spoke, and just like, you know, we were all in tears. So anyway, hello from Congo. Woo! I think that's a first. Good morning from Ghana. And she says, my son, who was Black, was cuffed and had a gun cocked at him because he had a meltdown. I left to go to Ghana since then. Bless your heart. I'm sending you a hug. Swathi, hello. Say hi to Siri for us, okay? And Sam has written in and said, I need help. My son is scared to go to the bathroom. Potty training, help, please. You know, we've got a big potty training thing that's coming that we filmed, but I'm going to tell you the shortcut to potty training, and that's Google Fox and Azrin. So it's Fox, F-O-X-X, Azrin, A-Z-R-I-N. That is the method that everybody uses. We've talked about it here on the show. You can Google on the show when we talk about it, but that is the method. You can find lots of information online about Fox and Azrin. The key is to go super duper slow and to make it super reinforcing. You know, first you got to make the bathroom reinforcing, right? So that the bathroom is the cool place to go. Then you got to find things that are reinforcing to the kiddo that that they will want to hang out in the bathroom for a period of time. You need to be, you know, giving your child lots of water and keeping a chart of, okay, I gave them water at 10:22 and they wet the diaper at 11:01. And you need to do that for a couple of weeks before you get started so that you have an idea. I didn't know this before my child was potty trained, but I didn't know that each of us has a timer in our body. Did you know this? That when you drink water, it's a timeable thing of how long before you have to go to the bathroom. I had no idea that it was like everybody has a number. Do you know what your number is? I did not know. I'm somebody who does live shows, and nobody ever said to me, oh, well, if you drink something at this time, you for sure will have to go to the bathroom at that time. So it helps you to be able to catch, you know, before accidents when you get a baseline of what that is. So once you have all that information and they love going to the bathroom and the bathroom is this exciting place, you have a timer and you're going to set up a schedule of, you know, so if you, let's say that your child's baseline time is 21 minutes, you set up a timer for 19 minutes, you feed them salty snacks, you give them water, you set the timer so that you know we're going to the bathroom at 19 minutes, and then you have your potty dance, you go to the bathroom, it's very reinforcing, you put them on the toilet, you set the timer for 5 minutes. If they pee in the potty, great. You celebrate, everything's wonderful, they get big, big treats. If they don't, after 5 minutes, because you don't want their legs to go to sleep, you take them off the potty and you set the timer for 2 minutes, right? Hopefully they don't go in that 2 minutes. If they do, you start all over again, right? You're gonna catch it. But once they pee in the potty, woo, and you set the timer all over again. You gotta do that for like 2 to 4 days where you don't do anything else but that. And sometimes you just like put your kid in a long t-shirt, no diaper, no underwear, so that you know exactly what's going on, right? And we're all home now, so do it at home. Anyway, Fox and Azrin, it gets it done. Sometimes kids, it takes longer, and if you do it for like, you know, 4 days and you go, look, it's just not working at all, then you take a break and you go, child's not ready, and you revisit, right? But you can do it. Fox and Azrin, Google it, it's really good. Switzerland that we have in the house, wow. And Swathi says she didn't know either. Did we know that there was a potty timer there, internal timer? There is. Hi from Northeast Connecticut. Glad that you're here. Grandma of a 3-year-old grandson. Thank you for listening to me the other day. We just are thrilled that you guys are here. Okay, so I forgot where I was. Hey, we have a lot of experts that are going to be on the show this week. I like to remind you guys that I'm not one of them. I think I did mention that there's lots of ways to connect with us. So write in any of the ways that you prefer, whether it's on Facebook Live, on YouTube. You don't even have to show it, Traven, because I took up too much time with the Fox and Azrin thing. But you can also watch us live on YouTube. You can watch us live on our homepage, autism-live.com. The other day we were having a problem with the chat. We are no longer having problems. You can write in as much as you want there. It's free and anonymous. So very excited. Okay, we like to start Mondays with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. And I'm going to pedal through the metal through this because we have fabulous guests coming up. And today's term is BCAT. We touched on this just briefly on Thursday because we talked about what an RBT was. So let's take a look at what our actual definition of a BCAT is. A BCAT is a board certified autism technician. That is what they are. And go ahead and let's go to our working definition of what a BCAT is. And again, we did talk about this on Thursday, but if you missed that, a BCAT is an autism-specific credential given after training, experience, and a rigorous exam. So a lot of times now, insurance it's mandatory that you have someone that has some sort of credentialing that is giving therapy. They won't pay for a therapist who's just come off the street and gotten training. They want them to be certified in some way. More and more insurances are doing this. And they usually are picking one of two certifications, either the RBT, the Registered Behavior Technician, which we talked about on Thursday, or the BCAT, which is the Board Certified Autism Technician. The difference between the two of them is that for an RBT, it specifies that they have training and knowledge in ABA. The BCAT asks that they have training and knowledge about ABA in the field of autism. And that is the difference, the major difference between the two. There's a course of study that people have to do, then they have to take exams, and then there are also practicum that they have to do working with another professional in order to get certified. You can get certified to do any of these things. You can start by taking the classes online. As a parent, I felt that my child would do better the more I learned, right? Because science bears that out. So I talk all the time about IBT, the Institute for Behavioral Training. They offer trainings, and right now they have free trainings for parents on their ibehavioraltraining.com site. But they also offer online the RBT trainings and, the BCAT trainings. What they did, because they're smart, is that they decided, somebody might be coming here for an RBT and somebody might be coming here for BCAT training. Let's do all the things that have to be done for both of them in one training. And it's a 40-hour training. So if you do their training, you're getting all of the things that the RBT would need to know and all of the things that a BCAT would know, and in preparation for taking the exam, that part of the qualification. So I know that some of you will write in and say, I'm having a problem because there are enough therapists in the center that I go to or the office that I use for ABA, but I need a BCAT and there's not enough BCATs to go around. So I just encourage you, as a parent, I want to know what therapists need to know, right? So you can get that training too. I think on IBT that if you did the entire RBT BCAT training, I think if you paid for all of them, I think it would be like $440. But if you ask them for a discount, say that you watch Autism Live and ask them for a discount, and hopefully they will give that to you. They should. So great guests today. We're already a couple of seconds late here for Bonnie Yates. The amazing special education attorney Bonnie Yates is going to be joining us. Bonnie said something to us on Thursday. And she said, oh, I want people to know about this service that I heard about. She said, I don't know much more about it, but it's this place called Air Tutors. And I said, Bonnie, I'm going to get them on the show. So Hassan Ali from Air Tutors is going to join us a little bit later on in the show to talk about this amazing service that Bonnie told us about. And I looked them up and I'm sort of really jazzed about them. And it might be a solution for you if you're having trouble with the long distance learning. So, and Bonnie said, if possible, she would stick around because she was the instigator of this. So is Bonnie with us, Traven? Let's see if she is there. She is. Oh, I think that's her now. Yeah. Hey, Bonnie, are you there?
I am.
How are you this morning?
I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah. Thrilled to have you here. And I was just saying that you on Thursday mentioned that there was this place called Air Tutors that you'd heard about, that you were going to be interested in looking more at, but that it might be a solution for some of our families. I told you I was going to get them here on the show. First, you and I are going to spend some time together, and then a little bit later on this hour, Hassan Ali from Air Tutors is going to join us to talk about Air Tutors and what they do and how they might be of use to our viewers here on the show. So Bonnie, though, is a special education attorney, and she is joining us from the Tollner Law Offices. And Bonnie, tell us a little bit about Tollner and give us a disclaimer about what you are going to talk about.
Hi, good morning, Shannon. Toner Law Offices is an aid attorney, special education disability discrimination firm. We're based in San Jose with offices in El Segundo and Irvine. We are going to be talking to you today about your legal rights under the IDEA and the California Education Code. That should not be substituted for getting specific advice about your specific problem, which we're very happy to do in California. So if you have a question, go to our website, which is can be found at Google Toner Law Offices, TOLLNER, and you can fill in a very brief intake form, and an attorney will get back to you within 24 hours. If you're out of the state of California and you still need help, go to www.copaa.net and look in their attorney directory. There's good people listed there. I think we might have questions, but before we go back to those, I was going to kind of rip through some stuff that I found about extended school year and comp ed. Is that okay, or do you want to do the
Yes, because it goes right in with a lot of what we're going to be talking about. So yeah, go right for it.
Okay. All right.
I do have to tell you, Bonnie, that we have a huge amount of people that are watching us internationally today. From all over, but and I don't know if they're here because they want to know about the air tutors, but we have a large international audience today.
Wow. Well, I want to hear about the air tutors too. So let's get through my stuff and get through the air tutors. Okay. So get this, New Hampshire, place you know a lot about. Their governor, whose name is John Sununu, which is a very interesting last name to have, has a lot of use in it, just signed an executive order in consultation with disability organizations about how they're going to handle ESY and comp ed. Apparently he got in some hot water because he didn't consult with school districts. But anyway, here's what he rolled out. Wish we had something like this. By 6/30 of 2020, every school district in the state of New Hampshire is going to have met with its students and individually and determine what extended school year services they are going to get. And you don't need to ask me about a definition of ESY because I will get back to you in a minute with a definition of that. So, but anticipating that people would want that. For fall, they're saying within the first 30 days of the fall school year in New Hampshire, the district is going to have an IEP meeting with each family to determine what compensatory education they are entitled to, and I'm quoting from the order, to make up for school closure, regression, or failure to make anticipated or expected progress as far as FAPE. So that basically means that school districts cannot delay on moving on this issue for kids that are entitled to comp ed. And the comment was that although, this is one of the disability rights people in New Hampshire that they consulted with in coming up with the order, she said distance learning has worked well for some students. However, many have been left behind and regressed. So that's an interesting thing. So then they are talking to the educators about do's and don'ts for planning summer 2020 ESY offerings. And so the takeaway on that is everybody's doing it differently. Every state, every school district. In a typical year, the administration of ESY is far from predictable, but usually has dependable and similar structures from year to year. This year, special education administrators are planning for the unknown, including uncertain levels of funding, location, and timing of service, as well as teacher and student eligibility. They do have a separate article, by the way, on where the comp ed funds might come from, which is interesting. We're all in this unique situation together, and we're trying to do our best, said Kevin Rubenstein, Director of Student Services, Technology, and Assessment for the Lake Bluff, Illinois School District 65. Many localities have already determined what students will qualify for ESY summer session based on decisions made by each student's IEP team. While many IEP teams look at the regression of skills to determine qualifications for ESY, I can't read this morning, sorry. States have different standards that advise team members in those states on ESY decisions. So they talk about these different standards and the uncertainty going forward, and they make the following suggestions. DO provides ESY services, even though there's uncertainty about what and how to do it. Do collect and analyze data. Do communicate with parents. Don't automatically offer ESY to every student. Decisions about ESY eligibility and services are made by each student's IEP team based on individualized data. ESY should not be automatically offered to all students with IEPs. The idea does not mandate when ESY determination should be made, but these decisions should be made in a timely fashion. Don't confuse ESY and compensatory services. The purpose of ESY is to help students maintain skills for the provision of FAPE, whereas CompEd enables students to make progress and are a way to address the denial of FAPE, which would be during school closure, as outlined in a student's IEP. Both determinations are made on an individual case-by-case basis. So I don't know if you want me to stop, but I had a couple more things. 3 things to remember about CompEd and then the standard for ESY.
Okay, I think go ahead and continue.
Go.
Okay. Because I do think this is the new, this is the first time that we're really starting to see movement of what are we going to get for the summer and the fall.
Right.
And maybe, New Hampshire is going to set the bar. We don't know, but I think this is more information than we've had previously.
Okay, just remember, they say, this is them talking to school administrators. Compensatory education must be individualized to each student. While templates and formulas may assist IEP and Section 504 teams in documenting their determinations regarding CompEd, it is critical to remember that a student's unique circumstances must govern the need, type, and amount of compensatory services. The amount of CompEd a student needs may not necessarily be an hour-for-hour replacement of the services lost, and it often isn't. We could talk about why if you want, but I'm going to not get into that so much now. IEP and Section 504 teams should consider whether and how a student made progress while receiving distance instruction. And then finally, what is ESY? ESY is special education and related services that 1, are beyond the normal school year in accordance with the IEP and at no cost to parents, and 2, meets the standards of the state educational agency. ESY must be only if the IEP team determines that services are necessary for the provision of FAPE. Districts providing ESY must not limit ESY services to particular categories of disability or unilaterally limit the type, amount, or duration of services. So that's my rant. Good morning.
Well, I think it's some clarity about what ESY is and what it isn't and how it's going to be doled out. You did say something interesting there, though, about the one-to-one relationship of CompEd, and there, like a couple of weeks ago, we were hearing there was the potential of 2-to-1. This said it won't necessarily be 1-to-1, and you were saying there were reasons for that. I'm curious, what are you thinking it's going to be, or what do you think that means?
Well, in California, there's a case that says some things about CompEd. And limits how much you can have, or may limit how much you can have. If people want more info on that, I can look at the California CompEd cases, because that might be very interesting to peek at. So let me do that. But that proposal was from a disability rights organization that was proposing 2-to-1 CompEd. And I think I said at the time, it's nice, but it'll never happen.
Okay.
So I mean, we aren't really, we don't really have guidance yet on the full impact of the school closure because it's not over yet. So we can't really look at that. We'll have to look at past cases and individual scenarios and what kind of compensatory education they were able to obtain. It's obviously easier if you have an expert. You can usually kind of consult with the expert and they can recommend an amount of compensatory education and a rationale for same. Like if comp ed is supposed to be intended to make up for a denial of FAPE, seems to me you'd have to look at what FAPE is, what FAPE was supposed to be, and then, you know, start to back it out from there. Same analysis with ESY. You got to look at, you know, what is the recoupment regression relationship, and then you can start talking about what it's going to take to get the student, you know, back up and running when school opens, because we anticipate there's going to be some regression, but we'd like the student to be back up to where they were within the first month of school. And if it's going to take them 3-4 months to get back to where they were, they're going to miss all that new learning that's going on simultaneously. These are always going to be individualized determinations, and the more evidence you have that supports your position, the more likely it is that you're going to get something meaningful.
Okay. I think we've got time for one question here. Can I throw it at you? It's full of jargon. It's full of jargon that I don't know. And so I don't know. My son turned 3 in March. We had our first ARD meeting for PPCD. I don't know if that's a school district or something else, in February. And he's approved for special ed and also 30 minutes a week speech therapy. We couldn't enroll him when he turned 3 because of our school district being closed indefinitely due to COVID. My question is, if he's enrolled for fall semester, will he get the 30-minute speech therapy in some way, in home or online, even if the district is closed for in-school services?
Well, there should be an online enrollment mechanism that you can take advantage of. Go back to the district website. I don't think it's okay to prevent you from enrolling and then saying their unilateral prevention of enrollment means you don't get the services beforehand. I think whatever your game is, you need to step it up a little. And I want to say this in the nicest way, but you got to reach out to the superintendent and the director of special education, and you got to tell them that you want to work with them, but you're really frustrated and, you know, you feel like your next step is going to be consulting with an attorney, and you don't want to be in the position of having compensatory education because your student really needs the services now. You know, I poke things a lot and I get things moving. I get things unlog jammed. And it's not that I'm doing anything particularly miraculous. It's just that I know where to poke. So, you know, if you're dealing with an administrator and your situation is going nowhere, you get her supervisor's name and you work your way up the chain of command and you make some noise, and you're going to get the clot unstuck.
There we go. It's so hard, I think, especially when you have a 3-year-old, because you know, this family is probably new to this process.
Yeah, they are.
And you don't know what you don't know, right? So, and especially it's COVID, so this seems like a new circumstance. So they tell you, oh yeah, enroll your child, you're going to get services. Sorry, you can't enroll, we're having COVID. And you know, you don't know what, but I agree with Bonnie, go back and take the truth.
Yeah, I think, oops, whoa, what did I just do wrong?
You're there. We have you.
Okay. I just want to look up, because from what I remember, there's a really fabulous attorney in Texas who I think totally. Yeah. This guy, Martin Cirkiel, Cirkiel. He is in Round Rock, Texas. I'll send Shannon his website.
Okay.
He's the person you should talk to, because I when I was licensed in Texas, which I'm not anymore, I gave it up, but I talked to him and I thought he was super cool. Like, he's who you want to talk to. So let me just send his stuff to Shannon right now.
Okay.
That's what you need to do. Talk to him. But my comments, I think, should apply in all states, which is you got to go up the chain of command. And, you know, if you bug somebody enough, it's likely that they're going to pay attention to you because they want to make you shut up. And I'm really quite proud of myself because I just had somebody do a sleazy Airbnb cancel. They said I could cancel for, you know, full refund because of COVID. And then they kind of changed their tune, although I had an email. And I basically just wrote Airbnb, and I'm like, listen, I'm an attorney. I know how to file a lawsuit in small claims court. I hope it doesn't have to come to that. Here's what happened. And I'm going to call you every single day until we get this resolved. Anyway, I woke up on Sunday morning to an inbox from Airbnb saying, good news. You got to keep at it, guys. It's really hard to be that obnoxious, but that's what you have to do. So
persistence. Our topic last week was the Maya Angelou quote, never take a no from somebody who wasn't authorized to give you a yes.
Thank
so
you.
You gotta
Thank
be
you. That's
persistent.
beautiful.
Okay, so
Sure.
I want to address a couple of quick things here. I just sent the email off to Traven, and Traven will post that lawyer in both the Facebook and the YouTube group, his email, so that you guys, his website, not his email, so that you guys will be able to find that. We're on YouTube and on, what am I trying to say? Facebook.
The World Wide Web.
Yeah, the World Wide Web. So there's that. And there have been a couple of questions that have come in that are specific and not about lawyer things, about child spitting and about manding for potty. I'm going to promise we're going to deal with those before we go off the air today. Even if we have to stay late, I will address those questions. But I believe that we have our guest, Hassan Ali from Air Tutors, who's able to join us right now, Bonnie.
Okay.
So Traven, if he is there, go ahead and let that. Is that him?
Yeah.
Okay. So go ahead and let him in. Hassan, hello. Welcome to Autism Live.
Thanks. How are you guys?
We're thrilled to be.
Scouts.
And so I'm Shannon, and this is Bonnie, the special education attorney who brought up your service on Thursday. She said she'd hang out to be here during this interview. So Hassan,
Awesome.
Tell us what Air Tutors is and what you guys do.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me, and thank you so much, Bonnie, for increasing awareness about us. I really appreciate that. And I was going to send you an email actually later on today, letting you know that I hopped on with Shannon, and thank you for the opportunity. So we started about 4 years ago. Wait, what?
I said right back at you. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. So we started 4 years ago with the incredible transformation of a learning different student. That student, she had ADHD, dyslexia, and visual and auditory processing issues. And I was actually tutoring her in person at the time. And when the mom found out, it was taking me an hour and a half to get to her house and get back home. The mom, she was like, Hassan, we are doing this online. So right when we switched to the online format, actually her daughter's level of engagement just skyrocketed. And the mom and I were like, what the heck just happened? So we sat her down and we asked her, why is this working for you so well? And she said it felt like a strange video game. And right when she said that, it made so much sense to me, because the way we were working together, I had her headphones on, first of all, which eliminated outside distractions. So her dog and her brother weren't running around and yelling in the background. And the whiteboard we made, she always had to have her fingers on her trackpad or her iPad, whatever she wanted to use. So she was always tactilely stimulated, and that helped keep her engagement. And then I also used a lot of vivid colors and live animations so that, it made learning way more visual, and the colors made it more like engaging for her. So instead of me just saying, like, my thing is chemistry. So instead of me just telling or saying like, hey, imagine the electron circles the nucleus, I was actually able to make the electron orbit the nucleus. So those little things just like really helped get her attention. So I mean, with that, we were able to like partner with school districts and private schools all around California. And now we actually have data-driven results demonstrating that we work amazingly well for SPED students and students of all learning types, traditional and accelerated.
Okay, so the service that you provide, tell us a little bit about who your ideal students are, what circumstances might be good, and how somebody would connect with you guys. That's a lot.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, we try our best to personalize the experience based on every student's unique needs. So we operate in 15-minute intervals. So if a student, sometimes students can't keep attention for a whole hour, or they don't even need one whole hour of support. Sometimes students just need 45 minutes, 30 minutes of quick check-ins. We also have a bunch of educational therapists that we've partnered with. And we also have awesome tutors that could help with test prep and academic support services. And so it depends on whatever the family and the student needs. We can create a customized program based upon where they're at. So either if it's like now, I guess it's June, so we can do a lot of summer enrichment programs to help mitigate that learning loss that was associated with school closures. And we could even do it in small groups. So if a student has like a friend that they want to work with, we can make it a little bit more fun for the student in that regard.
Is there an age that is range that you guys work with?
Yeah, so the youngest we've worked with is 3rd grade. And we also have a program going on at UC Berkeley, but our K-12 sweet spot is from 3rd grade to 11th grade for sure.
Okay, Bonnie, I like, as a lawyer and as somebody that's looking for comp ed for some students, I know this was part of our interest in Air Tutors, is that you're seeing potential here for families to say, okay, this might be something. Bonnie, do you have any questions for him?
Well, I'd love to see some specific visuals, although I understand that might be hard to do now. I'd like to do a demo of the program, and I'd also like to say it doesn't even have to be for comp ed. It could be for current ed during school closure. Have you had an occasion yet to work with any students that are responding poorly to the distance learning that districts, at least here in California, have been providing?
Yeah, definitely. And that's where we're finding a lot of engagement currently, is students are just, teachers and administrators are coming to us and asking with the feedback saying that whatever they're working on currently is not keeping their engagement. Mm-hmm. So then when they switch over to our platform, we see all fun types of testimonials saying, hey, I feel so much more productive. Actually, I could just read one out real quick. This is from Assistant Superintendent. I just got that this morning. Student really likes Air Tutors better than Zoom sessions. He says he feels more productive with his teacher, with the workspace. And how cool is it that my own little guy is on your platform and learning and staying connected? So that's, we work with one of the school districts in Southern California. That was the assistant superintendent's own son using our platform, wow. Which is really cool to see her feedback like that. And, but my whole thing is like, Zoom is awesome for what we're doing currently. It's a video conferencing platform. It's not an educational experience. So they're creating processes around trying to make it an educational experience, but they weren't designed for education. So we came at it with the angle of really creating awesome technologies for teachers that help create student achievement results.
Amazing.
Is there a way to do a demo?
Yeah, I mean, I could try to set that up real quick.
I mean, not now.
Not right now, not on the air, but like for Bonnie to check it out later on. Cool. Sorry.
Yeah,
like, so I'm curious about the fact that you've been doing this in Southern California, but if there's a parent in New York who's like, I want to be doing this service, I'll figure out my funding. I don't necessarily need to go through my school district. Are you guys able to help? We have people watching internationally right now who are concerned about their students. Do you have a limit of only doing things in Southern California?
No, not at all. So that's actually how we started. From that first student that I mentioned to you, her cousin started reaching out to us, her family, friends started reaching out to us from all over the world. And we've partnered with a bunch of schools and organizations.
Okay. How do people start, Hassan?
Yeah. So if you could email me, that'd be the best case scenario. My email is just Hassan, HASAN @airtutors.org. And just send me a little blurb about what your students' needs are, where you're at, and I could give you a call and reach out, and we could come up with a program that works best for not only your student but the whole family.
And where, like, I know you guys have a website because I went and looked at it before calling you. Tell them about where they can go to find more info.
Sure. Our website is www.airtutors.org, AIRTUTORS.org.
Wonderful. And on there, you show some of the different tutors and what their backgrounds are. You have some pretty impressive folks working for you that know some pretty impressive things.
Yeah, definitely. And, one thing we've done a really, really great job at is finding educators that have awesome personalities that can shine through web-based mediums. So beyond their academic brilliance, we find people that are really engaging, really fun to be with, so that students have a great time during the session. And we also have sign language tutors as well, which has been a huge need as of late. So like students with deaf and hard of hearing students, even if, so one of our districts had a international transfer student from Vietnam that only knows Vietnamese Sign Language, not American Sign Language. Remarkably, which was awesome, in 2 days we were able to partner with an international organization based in Vietnam, recruited one of their educators, and that educator is buzzing into our classroom on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings in California to teach our student English through Vietnamese Sign Language, which has been an awesome global, like, collaborative moment.
Wow. And one of the first questions I asked you is that, our audience, they have kiddos that are on the spectrum. And I said, is that something that you guys are afraid of, or do you think you can handle that? And you told me we absolutely can handle it.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that population because, a lot of times the students have little social anxiety sometimes. The web-based medium helps mitigate that. So if they have different fidgets and they want to just tap, they don't have that pressure of feeling awkward. And then our experience makes it just so much more collaborative and engaging that they're able to help learn and stay focused on the topic.
Well, and of course, go ahead, Bonnie.
Oh, I just sent you an email because
Nice.
I looked at your website. It's very easy to sign up. What is the cost?
So, especially during this time, we're doing our best to really make it as flexible as possible to meet each family's needs. So, with 40 million plus unemployed in our nation alone, I think this time requires a little bit of flexibility on all of our accounts. So whatever the budget is, we could try our best to help create a support program for that family, either by grouping it one-on-one to drag down the cost or whatever it is.
That's very cool. And also, my take on this, no guarantees, obviously, but this is the kind of service that if parents were to give the district 10 business days notice that they were purchasing this, they would be able to make a claim for reimbursement from the school district.
Awesome.
So that may help as well.
Definitely. And I'm curious, with your current clients, do you have any sense of what the percentage is of how many people are paying out of pocket and how many people are getting funding through other sources?
Yeah, it's really half and half right now. And it was, we started off with private schools and boarding schools, and that population has been growing. And now we're really getting into the public schools space. So with that transition, it's been pretty leveled off.
All right. Well, I think you got to hire some more people, Hassan, because we're going to be talking about you, and you're going to need a small army. So arm up. Because I'll tell you, this is the number one thing that parents are concerned about right now. And I've been sort of amazed to see how many parents are concerned about this, that this is the topic, right, Bonnie?
Yes. And if we're going to have a shelter in place 2.0 or 3.0, I mean, I didn't have the heart to say it on the air last week because it just was too bothersome. But I had been, reading stuff that said people should be prepared for the fact that there's going to be successive waves of infection, and we may have to do this more than once. And, like next time we do this, if we have to do this, we all learn a few things about like what we need to do. And so
let's do it right, for sure.
Having your technology plan up and running should be something that parents are talking about with their IEP teams now for the future. There should be something in the IEP that says if we have another school closure due to COVID, here's the distance learning plan, and it includes this particular platform. So
there we go.
Exactly, to offer different type of differentiated learning experience for our most vulnerable population of students that would be most susceptible to learning loss.
I'm really excited about this, and I'm going to talk to the 7 other attorneys in my office in about an hour. We have a group meeting, and I'm totally going to mention this to them. So thank you.
No, thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Bonnie. And I'm more than happy to do like a free demo with any prospective families out there, as well as share our experience with you too. So thank you so much for.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm out of time, you guys, but thank you so much for being here. Check out Air Tutors, you guys, and you can write to Hassan if you want the demo, and it's Hassan@airtutors.org, correct?
Right, correct.
Okay.
Do it.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Hassan. Thank you so much for being here, you guys.
Have a great week.
Thank you. I want to take just a second to address those 2 questions that I promised that I would get back to here. And so we have one person who says, my son is 11 and has been spitting nonstop for several months. It has, I don't know why we don't have my camera on, but on my screen, but I don't know what happened, Traven. I don't know if people can see me. But it's as if he has too much saliva. He chews on his shirt and spits into it. He also spits into his palm and wipes it behind his ear. So saliva is something that, the more you spit, the more you're going to make, right? And when it becomes like, there's a lot of different functions to it is what I'm trying to say. It has a sensory component to it. Putting it behind your ear has a sensory component to it. Chewing has a sensory component to it. And so there's a lot going on there. And I love that somebody gave you a reference of a book and that you said you were going to check that out. But I would do a couple of things. I would tell your pediatrician and have your pediatrician to check and see that there isn't something else going on, because it might be that he's having dry mouth, which is causing the saliva, and that could be caused by a bunch of different reasons, and you want to rule out all the medical things. But then you want to be working very close with an ABA, a BCBA, somebody who's doing ABA, so that they can watch exactly what he's doing and when, figuring out what the behaviors are, so that we can start to give him a more appropriate thing to be able to do other than spitting and putting it behind your ears, right? Because something is going on that he has that need for it, and expecting it to just go away is, the likelihood of that is like, it's unlikely. So I definitely, but there's too many components to it to sort of guess. I would definitely want to be working first with your pediatrician and then with an ABA professional to figure out what the dealy wheelie is with that. Okay, and then for the other person who said, how do I get my little to Mand to use the toilet? He's on the potty schedule right now. So one of the things that you do when you're doing the potty training, that Fox and Azrin thing, is that you're planning for the generalization right from minute 1, right? So when you, like, I buzzed through it really quickly, but when you've got that timer and the timer is set to go off, and when it goes, when it dings, we go, it's potty time, and we go off to the potty, right? So eventually, and we do that, for a couple of weeks, right? And then eventually, when the timer goes off, we look up and we go, and we wait to see if the child goes, it's potty time, right? So we just do a reaction and go, and see if they're going to do it, because we built this response in that the thing dings and we go potty time, right? So it's just and then if they don't, we go, what time is it? What should we be doing right now? And the child will go potty time, right? So we start that way. We're prompting them to Mand, right? And we paired it with the timer. And so eventually, we have less of a response of the thing dings, and the child will go, it's time to go to the potty over time, right? And then eventually we make the ding shorter and shorter and shorter, hoping that he is connecting with his brain. It's not just the bell rings. It's not just the Pavlovian dogs, right? The bell rings, now I'm hungry. It's the bell rings, my body feels this way. I pee in the potty, I get a reinforcer. And so we just lessen and lessen and lessen the ding of the bell until eventually he will just say, I need to go potty. And by the way, you got to reinforce the hey nani nani out of every time he asks to go to the potty. And it's difficult. Everybody goes, oh, well, that's easy. I got that. Except, the 1 minute that you're in line, with your mask on to get the groceries that you've ordered to be picked up at the grocery store. And that's the moment when your child says, Mom, I got to go potty. Oh, and you're like, I don't want to go into the grocery store bathroom, right? Have a plan, because when they ask to go potty, you got to take them to the potty, and you got to reinforce the asking and reinforce the going. And it has to be 100% across the board. I would say if you have potty training on board, you don't take your child to the grocery store where you don't want to take them into the bathroom. You avoid things where you cannot do that. So hopefully that makes sense. I just want to say hi to a couple of more people. Amifa, who joined us from Manchester, UK, Koyan Thing, and Mazrur. I love these names, you guys. I'm sorry I'm slaughtering them. And Jacqueline, thank you for writing in and giving more suggestions. Okay, you guys. So tomorrow on the show, we're going to change it up a little bit, and we're going to talk puzzles, because we all need to de-stress. We're going to spend some more time at home. And we've got the puzzles to end all puzzles. Masterpieces Inc. is going to join us and talk about puzzles. So it's going to be super duper fun. And plus, we're going to do a bunch of other stuff. And even I hope we're going to have time to do a meditation with you guys tomorrow, because tomorrow it's all about bringing the stress level down. That's what we're going to be doing. So until then, give your kiddos a hug for me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion. Welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and you can see that with me, I have the fabulous Evelyn Kung. I want you to know that while Evelyn is a wonderful expert in the field of autism, there is no expert who could give individual specific advice in this particular format, because they don't have eyes on the situation and the individual and the individuals in the situation, right? So let's not be mistaken about that. It would be a disservice to act as if they could give individual specific advice. But what is great is that when you pose a question, then we get to take a tour of, what Evelyn knows. And that's always a wonderful thing. And hopefully she will give you information that will help you to be able to ask the experts in your area who have eyes on the situation, and you will get wherever you need to get to faster and more efficiently. And we totally appreciate that. So
I wanted to jump in with a question that we didn't get to the other day, Evelyn. Would like to know how to deal with limited receptive language. And we talk on the show all the time about receptive and expressive language, but maybe you want to start and give everybody a refresher course so that, because I used to always confuse these two. I'd be in an IEP and they would say this and I would go, somebody just stick a railroad spike in my head. Which one is which again? Right? Took me years before I would go, oh, okay, I know what receptive language is. So go ahead, Evelyn.
I think depending on the child of your age, you shouldn't worry so much about, it just varies according to what level of understanding. But essentially receptive language is the language that you hear. Someone gives instructions and I'm following them. That means that I understand receptively what someone else is saying. So if a child demonstrates like, an inability or inconsistent responses, a lot of times the first thing to rule out is the non-compliant aspect. Is a lot of times when we give instructions to kids, it's not for preferred activity. And if it's not so preferred, and even now, if my kids come to me and say, hey, you know, I need food or something like that, and I know they can do it, my receptive language may not be so good. And that's more of a part of non-compliance. So you have to test this out first. If you start giving them or talking to them or putting instructions about all their favorite things and they're able to respond, but when you're telling them to come here, put on their shoes, hurry up and get in the car, go to the bath, which they hate, and they're not doing it, there's a fine line between what is them just choosing not to do it and them not understanding what it means. So if you're talking about receptive language understanding, there are a group of kids that have auditory processing issues, which means they hear correctly, but maybe as the way the words process through their brain, it processes a different way. And we've seen it in many of our kids where parents will come in and say, wow, the tree cutter is like, 4 blocks away and we can't hear it. But our kid immediately, stops what they're doing and seems very distracted. And then if we wait a few minutes, the sound of the car or whatever it is coming down the street, we hear it. And then when the car's gone, the kid's back again. So there are kids that we have, I think they hear
She froze.
a frequency that is different from others. And so there is that aspect, but I think that's the same with speech. We have many kids where we have speech therapists will give them auditory processing assessments. And we realize, oh, wow, they hear all the sounds except for the glottal stop sounds. So they don't hear the G's, the gus, the sounds made back here. Or maybe they hear all the sounds except for the voiceless sounds, the p and the h, they don't hear. So just think about what language sounds like if you're missing certain sounds in terms of processing. And maybe they're not even missing them, but maybe it's just delayed, the processing.
Thank you for saying that, because that's it's kind of like when you're on Zoom and when things stick and you're trying to piece it together, and like sometimes you can do it and sometimes you lose the gist of it. And I find it interesting, Evelyn, that you started talking about be sure it's not a non-compliance thing, because I have selective hearing too. There are things that when I don't want to hear it, I don't attend to it, right? But I will say that in the classroom, I'm often so disheartened by the fact that teachers assume that if they give a direction to a child and they don't immediately respond, they infer from that is non-compliance. And often it's exactly what you're saying right now, that they're on a little bit of a delay, or that they cannot hear the sounds that are being said and decipher them with any speed at all. And then somebody goes on to the next direction and they haven't been able to decipher what the first instruction is. And they tune out at a certain point because they're like, I'm not getting it. It's like me at a conference where they're using jargon. I'll try to hang. And when they get to like 8 jargon words in a sentence, I go, I'm going to bake mental cookies. And our kids do too. So thank you for bringing that up. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go right ahead.
No, but see, there's just so many considerations before jumping to there's something wrong with their receptive language that they don't
Okay.
have it. There's just a lot of assumptions. And there are some kids who receptively, it is one of the hardest things to teach. And these kids don't have typical development. We've had kids who talk before they hear. And how does that work?
Mm. Yeah.
But it happens. In typical development, that does not happen. You hear first, then you do. You're able to do. But I have to say that there are, it's a small group, but it's common enough where I say there's a group, where there are some kids who completely talk with no problem, but the receptive end, there is something that the understanding isn't there when we're teaching it. But that said, many of our kids also have really strong visual memory. And a lot of our kids, actually all of us, we all tend more towards, is visual memory better or auditory memory better? When some people have to close their eyes and hear something before they understand. And some people have to like plug their ears and understand. And our kids are exactly the same way. But what I've seen is a lot of times when kids do have some receptive language delay, they start depending on their visual memory a lot more. And I don't know if it's a coincidence or if it's how their brain's made or just consequence, I have no idea. But there are a whole group of our kids who the minute they see something, they know all about it. And those are the kids who are the visual learners. Those are the kids who a lot of times love the alphabet, can read, have hyperlexia, which is learning to read before anyone's taught them to read. They can see it in a sight word. They can see the word and memorize it right away and know that that word is cookie, because that's their favorite word or their favorite food. And they're 2 years old and no one's ever taught them. But, the first parent that had a kid with hyperlexia, the first kid that I worked with was mom had Sesame Street on TV and had turned down the volume because she was on the phone. And her kid was nonverbal and was sitting there reading all the words as they flashed. Ball, jump. Like he just knew all the words and she was like freaking out completely because her child had never said one word before. But in this circumstance, he was a visual learner and he had some auditory processing delays that we realized later. But that visual memory just kind of took over everything. So when he was learning language, we always gave a textual prompt for everything because it just went a lot faster as his receptive language was developing and getting better, and he was learning how to process information that was coming in auditorily. So, don't jump to those delays. A lot of times, if your child does have some type of auditory delay, that we have been able to find ways to compensate. But that, and in a school setting, what that would mean is instructions always have to be written down for your child. It's not going to be just depending on, the teacher giving that vocal instruction in front of everybody for them to know. Because maybe your child, if there was a delay, they missed it. But in your IEP, there should be this accommodation that all their work has to have this component of textual, visual information being given to them so that they're not falling behind.
So if you don't know what it is, at this point in time, all you see is that your child's receptive language doesn't seem to be, it sounds like you got to lean into your experts a little bit, that you got to talk to your BCBA, see what they're noticing, perhaps talk to the pediatrician to see what they're doing. But it sounds like too, Evelyn, that I love the phonemic awareness part of skills. Which is in the academic curriculum. It sounds like that might be something worthwhile to look at if your child is not demonstrating receptive. Am I barking up a wrong tree here?
Well, it's good if I think it helps the person that's doesn't know, hasn't been educated in all this, organize it. Because the phonemic awareness breaks it down into all the different sounds and you can kind of follow just to check.
Yeah. Yeah. And for people who don't know, so that skills for autism.
First things,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, one of the first things I talk to parents about is when you're talking, use short words, phrases. Don't talk too much. Your child's learning a language. And if you talk too much and you put me somewhere and you're talking another language, I tune out. That's what you were saying. But if you start to shorten your language to phrases or just to one word, and you'll see a lot of times the kids start to perk because suddenly they realize, oh, I know what that means. You said that word. I've heard that word before. And sometimes just shortening how you talk to your child. And it might sound rude from the outside, but for your child, that might be the beginning of just like slowing down your language, speaking in short sentences and short words, phrases. We teach our families that a lot right at the beginning of when they start ABA, and it's a big difference. You know, it's just that when you don't know what sounds mean and there's a lot of sound, you just tune out. So if you can shorten the amount of sound and noise that's coming in, a lot of times suddenly the kids start to be more receptively aware.
Wonderful. We've had a bunch of comments that have come in. Somebody who said, my heart is just broken. It breaks my heart that my kiddos have to grow up in a world like this right now. I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow on the show, we've got two amazing guests. Yadira Calderon is going to be here. She's a mom and an autism advocate, and she's going to be talking about grief and using art to process feelings and grief. And I think that's going to be really good for everyone. And then we're also having Courtney Tarbox on the show to talk about an upcoming webinar that she's doing about acceptance commitment therapy with kiddos on the autism spectrum to help them to deal with fear and anxiety and their feelings and what's important to them. And I think, you know, I really want to hear more about this webinar. Somebody else says this show, excuse me, my thing just jumped. This show helps so much. My computer is having all kinds of hairy canary things today. We just love that, don't we? This show helps so many people, and I'm so grateful for you all. Thank you. We're grateful for you too. Maya says, hi, I'm happy to be back. We're happy that you're back too. Nikki says, my son is having an issue accepting that this summer there will be no amusement park rides or carnivals, etc. Any suggestions how I can help him understand the closure for now? He is extremely anxious about going to the boardwalk amusement rides. He hits himself when I try to calmly say it's closed until further notice. And she goes on to say, is it possible to give more time for the webinar? So helpful, love it if you could give us more time. I do want to make you aware of the fact that, you know, we're live with you 5 hours a week, and then we play the marathon of whatever we did throughout the week, all weekend long. And that there are almost 9 years of videos for you to go through. There is, you know, I would love to be here more, but we've done research on how much you guys can handle to the point where you go, yeah, I can't watch anymore. Tell me what it is that you're wanting more of, and let me see if I can hook you up with that. But let's talk about because a lot of the kiddos are, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that this is an older kiddo. They're having a hard time with it, but we're having a hard time with it too, aren't we? If we all just admitted that and started from there, you know, we are being told, you know, you don't get to do the things that you want to do. And I'm watching some adults having some very hard time dealing with that. You know, and so I think we have to start there when we're talking about our kiddos having emotions about it, Ev, but you help us because you know much more about this.
Well, I mean, this is a unique time. It's not like any of us have ever been quarantined. You know, this is the first time in our country where so many things have been closed. So this is a unique time for all of us and the adjustment periods. The one thing to go back to for all of our kids is you have to stay on a concrete system, because that's what our kiddos get. That's what our patients, our, you know, children, they are, you know, our adults too that are on the spectrum. You go back to the idea that they need structure. And I don't know if your child knows what a calendar is. The calendar often often a hard concept for time, but if you go through it every day, so if you have a calendar that shows 12 months and you're able to X out all the days that they've closed up to, and the thing is, sometimes you have to go backwards because you might have to go to the last time they went to the amusement park. And a lot of times the calendars is what represents when something's going to happen. So if
she wants you to know, Ev, he's hyperlexic and he keeps asking her for a calendar date.
Yep. So what happens is you can take the dates from the boardwalks and Universal Studios and Disneyland, and they've X'd out to where they know. So that whiteboard with the calendar, you can have it all X'd out and to where they know. And then so he can, let's say they exit out through the end of August, and September you don't know, you just leave it blank, because that's his hope.
I see.
Will go away. And the thing is, if they change it, you can just go in and redo it. That's why the whiteboard calendars are really great.
Okay.
You can go in and do it that way. And at least he'll know, okay, so July and August are off. And that is going to relieve some of his anxiety. It won't relieve all his anxiety because he just still doesn't know when it's going to open, but we don't know either.
Yeah, it's rough. And, you know, I mean, this is something my family watches very closely because my husband is employed at one of the larger amusement parks here as a union actor. So we watch very closely. And here in Los Angeles, there is no definitive date of when anybody is reopening, right? But so I love the idea of, we know for sure there are dates they aren't opening, and to put the X's there, but not definitively say they're going to open on this day. But other places in the world, they are opening. They are in the process of opening. So you know, I don't know where you are, but it might be worthwhile to check on a regular basis to see what announcements have been given about boardwalks opening. But openings are imminent in places. You know, there are things opening right now in Florida. So you may not have to wait the entire summer depending on where you are. And she says it's really hard here. And I don't know, Ev, I just like, I know that sometimes it's just like, if somebody is that fixated on something, that's all there is. But my thing that I'm wondering is there an activity that can be started that has to do with amusement parks and things, that whether it's an art project where he writes a book about on the day that he goes back and he illustrates it, or you know, I know a young man who built a small but a roller coaster in his backyard, like an adult size roller coaster. It was just 20 feet long, but it went up and it went down. You know what I'm saying?
So, yeah.
There are activities.
So the question, I think, for this mom, and actually for all the adults that I work with, is when I look at an adult more, I look to see what leisure activity do they have? Because this is the reason why you want to kind of build a big source of different types of leisure activity, because not everything is going to always be available all the time. And usually it's swimming pools, you know, like if you live on the East Coast and your kid loves swimming, we look to see if there's an indoor one that you can get to, but even then you can't depend on it to be available. Yeah. One of the things I would say for this mom is, this is the time to start building other interests, other leisure activity interests. And if you're able, you need to figure out the function of why he loves those roller coasters. You know, is it the sensory aspect? Because if it's the sensory aspect, then you're going to be thinking about what other types of sensory activities would bring that same stimulation. And there's not a lot that can replicate the vestibular aspect of a roller coaster, but there are a few things. Like for some of our kids, they love like a steep escalator. You know, like at Universal, those steep escalators. I know people who love just riding them, and that's enough for it. But even then, that's whether it's open or not. But I would try to figure out what other activities out there that would provide that same kind of sensory, if that's what he's loving. It could be that he loves the shape of the roller coaster and he knows exactly what to expect. There's a game on the computer where you can build your own roller coaster. So you could have go in there and build all the roller coasters he's ever been on and all the different amusement parks and boardwalks and, you know, all of that. There's a new game on, I don't know what system it's on right now, but my kids were just talking about it, is where you can build, it's like an urban planning.
Right. It's like a sim amusement park.
Yeah, you can build an amusement park, and you could, if he loves just the aspect, he can go build his amusement park that he loves, all the different ones that he likes and the types of roller coasters are on it, and you know, all that aspect. So try to figure out like what aspect he really misses, and then see if any of these things take, you know, writing about what he likes at the amusement parks is great, creating a book and putting some visuals in there. So maybe he'll go find pictures and put it together. And that's what, you know, that's one form of doing it. It could be all these things, because nothing is going to replicate going, you know, completely itself. But you can do all these other things that give him some aspect of interest and where he can kind of direct his interest, his highly preferred interest.
I would also say too, there's a lot of things online right now. There are virtual, like you can get the virtual glasses and you can take existing theme park rides with those glasses. You can, people over the years have recorded so many things at Disneyland and other parks. If you put in the name of the park into YouTube, you will find videos of every show that there is. I mean, you know, it's there.
We had a supervisor who was part of Extreme Roller Coaster Club online on YouTube. And one of our kids loved roller coasters and found a roller coaster of her riding one and screaming. I mean, it was amazing that he found it. But yeah, there is a YouTube channel just for roller coaster rides.
And every other amusement park thing. And then there are all the Wii games that are the boardwalk, where you throw the arrow. They have them on Wii. I can't think what the name of that game is, but there's an interactive video game that, I don't know, looks and feels like it to me. It's not the same as being outdoors, but it might be something. Okay, I want to move on to another question here. My son has a tendency to pick his nose with his indexes many times during an hour. How can we help to make him stop, besides telling him to stop?
You have to think about the function. This is where you need your BCBA to help you figure out the function. Is he doing it for attention? Is he doing it because something's stuck up there? Is he doing it because it feels good now? Or, you know, maybe after the fact, if something's stuck there that they have to get out. So this is where I would say you want to do a functional assessment to figure out what it is. Sometimes it always happens like after the cold season, where there's a lot of drippy noses and a lot of kids will start picking their noses. And then it turns into a habit when you let it go too long. So if it's turning into a habit, that's a different way of targeting it, because it's giving him other things to do with his finger. But the thing is, if there is something like, if he is a congested kid, if he's a kid that just has lots of sinus issues, I would say this is where you're going to go to your doctor and see how you can clean out his sinus system so that whatever's there isn't bothering him anymore. And sometimes it's the use of nasal sprays, which I hate, but they're effective. And your kid might hate it at the beginning, but it might be worth it. Work with your BCBA to learn how to use it, learn how to clean out his system, and so that it removes the need to want to pick his nose. Because a lot of time, we see this a lot post-winter, post-cold season. The kids all like start picking their noses, but then once that season's over and they stop being so drippy and everything, a lot of times it does stop. So I would go in and see like, what is the need that he's having? You know, has it turned into a habit already, or is it just really bothering him?
Yeah.
And take care of that.
But I think, you know, I hope people realize that sometimes when you guys write in a question and our experts say to you, well, we need to know what the function of the behavior is. And I think sometimes you guys are like, oh, that doesn't help me. But I want you to understand why she's saying that. Because if he's doing it, let's say he's doing it because he's bored and he doesn't have anything else to do, and you give him a nasal spray, that's not going to help. It's not going to, you're going to now have medicated him and he's still going to be bored and he's still going to stick his finger up there. If he's doing it because he wants to get your attention and have you go, stop that, don't put your finger up your nose, then the nasal spray isn't going to help either. Right? So, but the truth is the reason why our experts say know what the function is, because if they know what the function is, then there is an intervention that will be effective and some take more time than other, but there will be something that's effective. But if you dink around with the wrong one, you're just going to make it worse. That's why you need to know what the function is. It's like, you know, you're going to go in and fix something, but first you have to know what it is that you're fixing. Does that make sense? I hope people get it. It's not just a, you know, a phrase, well, we need to know what the function of the behavior is. It's like, well, if we know what's going on, then we'll know what to do to intervene. And there are many different things that would intervene. It's just you got to pick the right intervention to go with the right thing that's going on. So I hope everybody gets that. Tell me if I said anything that wasn't true, Evelyn?
No, everything you said was true. You really want to find out. A lot of times just teaching them how to use a Kleenex though actually works too. But the thing is, if you're going to teach it, it's your finger's always with you. A Kleenex is not.
Yeah.
You're going to teach him how to use a Kleenex. You have to be next to him all the time with a box of Kleenex.
Yeah.
So that every opportunity is using the Kleenex.
There you go. Okay, and Gary says, thank you for this great discussion. Yes, because what you wanted to talk about today was boogers. I know, that's what we want to do here. Okay, so back when you were talking about using fewer words, they want to know how many words would you recommend? Is it pretty much depend on the child and the functioning level? When you're using
it depends on the kid. If it's a brand new kid and it's you know, a young child, even older child, if they don't have any language, if they've had no demonstration of language, I actually tell the parents to go down to one word. And once that, you start to see when the parents go down to one word and not saying the child's name all the time, because we tend to say, Charlie, are you listening? Charlie, come here, come here. And you also want to stop yourself from just repeating the same instruction in a series. So it's like, Charlie, 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 come here, come here, come here, come here. Because we used to laugh because there were so many kids, I can't even tell you, where the kids would come sometimes and not come when they'd say, come here. And then we figured out that the kid would only come if the parent said, Charlie, come here, come here, come here 3 times in a row.
It's that Sheldon thing where he has to knock on the door and go, are you there? Are you there? Are you there?
But their kids didn't know the meaning if the parent just said, come here. It's just that the parent had this phrase that they used really often and they named it together. And it's the way I describe it is, you know, when you're young and you're learning your alphabet song and you say LMNOP and you think LMNOP is one word.
Yes.
And it's the same thing I find in our population with counting for our kids. There are so many of our kids that think 1, 2, 3 is one word. So like when I'm teaching numbers and we can't get past 1 or 2 discrimination, like touch 1, touch 2, give me 1, give me 2. I actually start with 5 and they learn all the numbers past 3 with no problem. But it's that 1, 2 or 1, 2, 3 that they just think is one word. And it was just paired that way for so long on so many things.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I'll just start going down to one word, and then as they start to follow, then I slowly start increasing the number of words.
Okay. A parent writes in and says, I so appreciate your decision on hyperlexia. My son has been reading out loud before too, and also a self-taught pianist as well. Reads music and other instruments, now verbal, thankfully for ABA and VB. Please, families, don't give up. Thank you for that wonderful inspirational message. And they go on to say, thank you so much for everything that you do. Okay, another parent, I love this. They said, I took my son to his school to see that no one was there. He is very visual and needed that to move forward. He thought he was the only one at home sick. He understands now, and we use the calendar. It helps, and we give him goals for the week. That's wonderful. Thank you. Okay. And the parent says their son is 22 and they wish that they could build him a roller coaster. And I'm telling you, this young man built the very smallest thing, but it, maybe, reach out to somebody in your community and see if they'd be willing to build him something. You know what I'm saying? Some kids are getting the Lego kits of their favorite amusement parks. I love that. Thank you for telling that. What about buying a mini pool for your backyard to see if your pool, or see if the pool in your community is closed. Somebody writes in, don't you love all this support that parents are giving you? My son loves thrift shops for VHS and DVDs. So we made a Blockbuster in our garage. Woo! That's a mama. I love that. Okay, they go on to say though, that somebody says a mask is a struggle, but hoping that he will find a preferred activity, he will wear one. It's heartbreaking. Someone else says, sorry, came in the middle. My granddaughter is nonverbal autistic. So should we shorten our speech with her? And they want any advice on potty training her.
Well, definitely. If anybody that's nonverbal, regardless of age, you're going to shorten your speech. And if you can shorten it, you can just start with one word. And if they start to follow one word, then you start to move to phrases. And, you know, in one of the instructions I always tell teachers in school is, you know, if you tell a typical kid one thing, if you give a direction like come here and they don't come, teachers will change the wording. And they'll be like, come over here. And keep changing the instruction every single time. That's what you don't want to do. You want to stick with the same instruction, because if the kid's listening and finally you got their attention and you say the same phrases or words over and over, they will start to pay attention to those words because they're familiar. Our kids love routines, repetition, and that's what helps.
I'm so glad that you said that, because I would assumed it was the exact opposite. Now I understand why there's so many people. What I hate more than anything in life is when you ask somebody a question and they give you an answer and you say, I don't understand, and they use the exact same words. And that's rampant in the world, but now I understand why, because some people need that. Okay. We have a question that came in that probably is more of a question for Bonnie, but I want to address it really quickly. If your child is unable to learn remotely due to their capacity, can you request in-home services from the Department of Education? And the short answer is you can ask for anything. The longer question and answer is, will you get it? And the short answer is nobody knows right now, because it's new rules, new situation, and it depends on your child and what kind of a case you mount. But you know, I'm listening to Bonnie, and she's saying to parents, be vocal, tell them what you want. You never know what you'll get. It's a little like going to Vegas right now. And that's not necessarily a good thing, but it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Definitely ask. If they say no, you're not anywhere farther behind than where you were.
Right. Okay, and I realized I jumped to another question and we never really got to the potty training question.
So potty training, I always say the first step of potty training has nothing to do with potty training. It has to do with compliance.
Tricky.
If you want to potty train your child, we tell our staff, don't potty train. One of the steps for readiness is, are they compliant to just basic instructions? Will they come when you call them? Will they sit when you call them? Will they pull up their pants when you tell them? You know, really basic instructions. Because once in therapy, we start with basic instructions, and part of it is, yes, they need to learn this instruction, but another part of it is they need to realize, wow, when somebody says something, I have to respond. And when I respond the way they want, I get something really good, whatever that good is, that reinforcer. And when you get that child to understand that if I do something that you say and I know I'm going to get something beneficial from it, I will do it. Because the ultimate control is with potty toilet training. If they're not going to go, they're not going. And there's almost nothing you can do to make them go. So one of the readiness skills that has to be there is they have to be compliant. They have to be able to follow instructions and know that they will get something good for following those instructions, you know, whatever it may be, because then that will create motivation. And some people worry that, but this type of false motivation isn't good. I want them to go because they want to go. We're not there yet. That's another goal for another time. Initially, we're just teaching them that says, hey, if you do something and you respond, if I ask something and you respond, I'm going to give you whatever you want, whether it's related or not to, your request. And once they understand that back and forth, that exchange, then you can start asking them for more difficult things. Because with toileting, It's a social, I mean, it's a health, safety issue, but really understand about what toileting is. You don't, it's just something you're asking them to do that you have no understanding about. It's the same way, like, why do you toss a ball? It's a social interactive reason. It's not because you really need to toss the ball to live, you know? And so a lot of times with toileting, you just have to think, if they don't understand, if whenever you're trying to teach something that they don't really understand, you have to give them some type of motivation that's external to, you know, their own. And so the first thing I would say is get compliance going. They need to be listening to you and understanding that, hey, if they listen to you, they get some really good stuff. And sometimes the good stuff is just a big hug from grandma and, you know, just the love that they get from someone. And sometimes it's a cookie. And sometimes it's access to an iPad game. And sometimes it's juice. And sometimes it's freedom to just do whatever they want. So if they understand that exchange, that is a basis from where you start doing toilet training, because that they need to understand that they're, you know, they're doing something, and it might be the only time I sit up, the only time I get access to a certain game on the iPad is if I'm sitting on the toilet. That's fine. You know, we'll shape it so that it becomes more appropriate later. But initially, when you're starting with toilet training, you want to start with compliance first. And then once you get compliance down, and it has to be down really, really, like, it has to be there firmly. It can't just be compliance to a few things. It has to be, they understand if you say something, they have to respond. And then something as good is going to happen. So start there. And then after that, we've talked on the show many times about, you know, Azrin and Fox. And that's a curriculum, it's a book, and it's a way of toilet training children. And it works great. The only question in it is how long will it take? But it does work. If you have compliance first and then you do that, you're in a really good place.
And I always say Fox and Azrin. I hear you saying Azrin and Fox.
I don't know. Say, you know, I get confused.
I don't know what it is. I just wanted to make, because I say Fox and Azrin, and it's Fox with 2 X's and Azrin, AZRIN. I always want to put an H in, but there is no H. And I want to point out that in this instance, it's Grandpa. I didn't say that when I told you, but it's Grandpa who's written in, and we love that. They love hugs from Grandpa too. We have lots of videos. We actually have a big video that we're getting ready to release in the next couple of weeks. That's a big discussion about potty training. But it's the thing that I always love to tell caregivers is that they have figured it out. So the anxiety that you have about it, will this child ever be potty trained? I just want to tell you, they have figured it out. Your child will be potty trained. So take a breath and do the things that Evelyn suggested you do now. You don't really have to wait in today. I know you want to be at the place where you're done, but it's coming. And there is a system, that Fox and Azrin system. And if you follow it, and if you're working with professionals, it's going to happen. So that for me as a parent and as a caregiver, it's like, okay, if I know it's going to happen, it's a lot easier. And by the way, you know, I've had a lot of experts on the show over many different years. And I always like sort of test that with them and go, you know, is it everybody? Can you get, like, if you've been able to get everybody potty trained, and I've heard the stories of being able to potty train somebody who is 45 years old and has never been potty trained. Right. I've heard the stories of kids who are, you know, have the most challenges, and that they've been able to potty train them. So I feel confident in saying to you that your granddaughter is going to get potty trained, but take it slowly. And the one thing that, you know, you were saying about that compliance piece that I want to make sure that everybody gets, because it's the part that we don't hear, which is that what the individual learns is that when I do this and you ask me to do this and I do it, that good things happen. Yep. It's not the reverse. We have all been trained that compliance is do this, and if you don't, I'm going to punish you, and I'm going to talk to you. You don't have to listen to me when I say guilty as charged. I do this all the time, but that is not the ticket. The ticket is what Evelyn said, which is, what I'm teaching you is that when I ask you to do something and you do it, good things happen. not the other way. Anything you want to say about that, Ev?
Nope, I just can't emphasize compliance is just really the core of it, because you can't, toileting is one of the things where the person themselves has full control.
Yeah. But I want to encourage people, if you want to know more about getting compliance and the right kind of compliance, right? Because everybody gets so nervous about the compliance piece, but the compliance piece where your child is making a decision to do what you've asked them to do because they know and trust you. And, you know, because we get all fatootsed about the compliance piece, right? If you want to know the right way to do it, I really want to encourage you to go over to ibehavioraltraining.com. It probably will cost you somewhere between $7 and $15 to be able to rent the video course that you can watch and everybody on the team can watch, and you can discuss it and, you know, and do all these things, but you will learn the compliance piece and how to do it in the right way. Because we were all trained in our childhood and in our upbringing in the complete wrong way to get compliance. So just something to think about. I know it's like anarchy, what I'm saying here, right? Like, what, we don't know how to get compliance? No, we don't, because we've been taught punish, 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 punish. And if you look, the studies show that doesn't work. In fact, what works, you know, I love one of our experts who says all the time, up the praise. You want compliance, up the praise. I want to get a pillow that's crocheted with that somewhere. You know that song, it's Fatboy Slim that sings it. It's called Praise. And I'm sure that it's about religious things, but it's like a new wave disco-y kind of song. I have to praise. That was our ABA song in our house. That whenever I didn't know what I was doing, I would remind myself, I have to praise him. I have to praise him like I should. And that's what works, is praising.
Do you want a funny story quickly about that?
Yes, yes.
So there's this watch, and you can probably, it was called I think it was a watch minder. There's a couple different ones where you would use it for kids so that it would buzz in school. So every time it buzzed, they would have to look at the teacher. So, you know, their attention was away, they would go back. I actually have used it more on parents than kids. And I set it, and it's usually a certain time of day, and it's usually the hard time of day, you know, that 4 to 8 period where kids start getting, everybody's kind of like not in a good mood. I put it on parents, and I'll set it on a setting where every time it buzzes, the parents has to say something good about the child or give them some kind of reinforcement vocally. And parents hate it, but they all admit that it works because the kid is so happy because the parents are they're regularly just delivering the positive interaction and just praise to the kid. And I always say, you can say anything. It can be anything from they did something well to, oh, you have such pretty blue eyes. You know, it can be anything, but all the parents I've used it with say it works, but it's hard. It
is hard. I've used something like that in a classroom as a teacher. I just had a little kitchen timer, but I had a little kiddo who needed attention so often. And so even before my computer's doing all kinds of things. I hope I'm still with you guys. But anyway, even before I learned about ABA, I had this little timer that sat on my desk that buzzed. It didn't go beep, 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 but it buzzed every few minutes. And that would remind me to give that one kiddo praise. Yep. And it was life-changing for both of us, for me as a teacher and him as a student. His mother and I cried. But you know what I mean? Because like I would just praise him every time. And eventually I made it longer and longer. This is before ABA. So ABA kind of makes sense to me, right? All right, we've had so many questions that have come in the last couple of minutes. I'm loving that some people are telling us that their pools are opening and that things are opening. Somebody wrote in about mask suggestions, and a lot of people wrote in with suggestions for her about trying a bandana or a gaiter for a few minutes at a time. The mom says he hits himself over the masks. I want to continue on. Somebody said the potty training, we just got through this with our BCBA, longest month of my life, but no accidents since. Just going to be like grown-ups. I love, love, love. Says life-changing once it's done, especially in a COVID world. Hey, there's no better time than right now to work on potty training because you're at home and you're not going anywhere, hopefully. That's a good thing. Okay. My son is 3 years now. He has ASD. He can speak a few words like water, sit down, alphabet, numbers, nursery rhymes, but most of the time he doesn't speak anything. Please tell me, will he be able to speak in the future?
He has the best. He has all the basics down. He's saying all the words that he loves. And if you notice, if he's saying his ABCs and nursery rhymes, it's because he loves change. Nursery rhymes and songs and little kids and how you spell words never change. And those kids are amazing because that means they probably have some, they've already figured out that, you know, that nursery rhymes go in a certain order and they found a way to do it. So what that tells me about your child, if they were to walk in, was that flexibility is going to be an issue. There's going to be a rigidity issue, but he's also really smart because he's figured it out. So I think that, you know, definitely with a lot of ABA training, you have a lot of potential to go all the way. When kids are 3 and have all of those skills, if you get intensive ABA right now and 40 hours a week, and it might sound crazy, get a good BCBA with you, get some therapists in there and really focus on this for the next 3-4 years, maybe less. And, you know, maybe he'll be in regular kindergarten.
Yeah.
You know?
And I can't emphasize enough. It's like you have this moment right now where he's 3 and he's got words, which means he's got vocal production. And so you're in the catbird seat. And it really is going to depend on what you put yourself up to for the next couple of years. And I agree with Evelyn, because my son, this was my son. You know, for a while, my son, I say that he was, for all intents and purposes, nonverbal. He had like 3 words that he still said, but they weren't purposeful. They weren't to draw your attention. They weren't, you know, to label something. And I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. But we did intensive ABA. We did exactly what Evelyn is saying. 40 hours a week for the first 2 years. It was 35 hours the second year. And my son is a verbal boy getting ready to apply to college in the fall. Make whatever changes you have to make in your life, find the best quality ABA. Don't dink around with people who don't know what they're doing. And unfortunately, those people are out there. Get the best possible quality ABA therapy. Do it wholeheartedly, learn it yourself, and make the people around you learn it as well. And you will never be sorry. I promise you, you will not be sorry for the time spent. It's a lot. It's not easy, but it's now. Now is the moment. And literally now is the moment, because you're going to get funding to be able to do it now, and you won't in 2 years. They won't give you the kind of funding. They won't give the kind of funding to a 5-year-old that they give to a 3-year-old, and they won't give the funding to an 8-year-old that they would give to a 5-year-old. So now. She also wanted to know about how much screen time is advisable for a 3-year-old, and if the GFCF, how the GFCF diet helps autistic kids.
So I would say that if you are questioning GFCF, it doesn't help all kids. I think this goes back to where just the core genetics of where autism comes from really differs. There's a lot of different genes in play, and there's all different reasons and groups. There is a group, probably, you know, my guess, if I had to guess, would be like 30% really, the diet really affects them. But it's, you know, one of the issues here is if you're really concerned about food and whether your child should be on a GFCF diet, is I would take dairy away and wait a month and see how it goes, and then introduce it back in. And if you see a change in the behavior, you know, introduce it back in. If you see a change in behavior and it gets worse, then yeah, keep them off dairy. And do the same with the gluten. Gluten, it takes 6 to 8 weeks, I think they said, sometimes 3 months before you should reintroduce it again. But I'd say that's the easiest way to figure out if your child is, you know, if the diet works for your child, but you have to do it cleanly where they're completely off of, you know, whatever you're removing at the time. If you have a good autism biomedical person who lives near you, go see them. You know, there are great doctors out there who really can test a lot of different things. I mean, one of the biggest issues right now, since the prevalence of autism has just increased so dramatically, is everybody knows there is a genetic component or a biomedical component. So if you go get, I had a parent go see a doctor for one thing, and actually they came out with a whole list of other things that they had no clue about, that their child wasn't processing, and other issues that had come on. And just by addressing those issues, the learning pattern for the child increased significantly. But it was specifically for that child. I can't tell you, just in general. But just if there is somebody that's a biomedical person who specializes in kids with autism near you, go and see them if this is definitely the concern. Because we all do know that there is the behavioral component to help relieve symptoms of autism, but for many, many of the kids, there's a whole biomedical component that needs to go alongside to really impact the child. Because if your child is not eating like everybody, is not sleeping, just the really core things, you definitely need to start looking, because your child needs to sleep. You think about how we get when we're sleep deprived, we can't pay attention, we can't remember things. Same thing happens to your child. Your child's not ready to learn. If your child has lots of allergies, if you talk to a neurotypical child that has lots of allergies, they can't focus in class because they're just all foggy, and they're not getting the best fed information at that point. So if your child has any of these really just basic health issues, and figure it out with a biomedical professional and a doctor who really works with people on the spectrum. That's probably your best bet.
Okay, I want to encourage people, if you have biomedical questions, the best place I can send you to is to TACA, which is the Autism Community in Action. So if you go to TACAnow.org, you'll be able to find out a bunch of information about diet and a bunch of parents to talk to you about diet. While it is not effective for everyone, I can tell you for those kids that the GFCF diet, which is the gluten-free, casein-free, which is milk and the protein in milk and in gluten, for those kids that it does work, it's pretty amazing. Yes. My son went from not being able to learn a new word to learning up to 5 words a day within a couple of weeks of going on a gluten-free, casein-free diet. So I do think it's worthwhile to look at, to see. We've only got like 2 minutes, and I just want to squeeze in. We've got somebody who says how to teach a 2-year-old turn taking, any games, etc. Also how to get his attention. He is always in his own world. Please check out our toy guides. Go to our website, autism-live.com. Go to the toy guide at the top. It has things by category, and it will tell you different things. And then if you go to the blog, we have the last 2-year toy guides as well. But there are great lessons and skills, Evelyn, to help a child. And I just want this 2-year-old to get a lot of help now, because at 2, if you can get your child caught up, then you don't have to get them caught up later when they're further behind.
If you're 2, I wouldn't worry about turn taking so much, because a lot of 2-year-olds can't turn take already. What I would focus on as a 2-year-old is nonverbal imitation. If they can do what other people are doing around them and they have no language, they will blend into every social setting up until about 6 or 7 years old.
There you go.
Imitate what other kids around them are doing.
Okay, so, and there are great lessons to do that and skills. You can go to Skills for Autism. And I'm sorry that we are out of time. I will take it under advisement that you're asking for more time, you guys, but today I don't have it to give, nor does Evelyn. Evelyn, thank you so much. It's always so great to have you here. I so appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
All right, bye-bye. And then I want to let you guys know again, tomorrow on the show, Yadira Calderon is going to talk with us about grief and art and how we can use art to help our children to express their feelings. And then we've got Courtney Tarbox to talk about an upcoming webinar about acceptance commitment therapy with our kids with ASD. That's going to be amazing. I'm looking forward to that. And on Friday, we have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Alspaugh Jackson will be here. And of course, the wonderful self-advocate speaker and all-around great guy, Tom Island, will be here to talk about some things that he wants the world to know about being on the spectrum during this COVID pandemic and other things happening in the world. So we'll be back here tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are coming to you live from many different places. And if it looks a little bit different today, it is because I am on a different computer. I'm on a Mac and I'm not normally on a Mac. We had some technical issues yesterday afternoon. For those of you who are card clients, and especially new card clients who might be tuning in, we had a webinar that was planned for new parents last night that I was going to be leading, and we had catastrophic issues and couldn't even get me live to do the meeting. And of course that was horrible and I'm horrified, and I just want those parents to know that we are going to be rescheduling and we will make sure that that happens and that you have access to that meeting. But then the next tumble, that when we realized we weren't going to be able to get live for that meeting, we were panicked about were we going to be able to live this morning. And we want to thank Zoom Australian support last night, and then this morning Kansas City got it done, worked through the night and up early this morning so that we want to thank the IT department at CARD, in particular Michael Alexander, for going above and beyond to make sure that it happens, and to Traven for weathering the whole thing. And we're here, and that's a very exciting thing because the show was too big, too important today to bypass that. And now I have helicopters, so directly overhead, and that is how today is going to go. We had earthquakes last night. Just saying, we're looking for the locusts. But other than that, folks, we go on because that is what we do in the autism community. That is what we do. Hey, I want to give a shout out too that yesterday was Joanne Lahr's birthday, and as you know, she's in the hospital and pretty gravely ill. And thank you everybody for sending all the love on her Facebook and sending messages. And I'm told that her hospital room, where we're not allowed to go and visit because of these times that we live in, but I'm told that her hospital room looked like a florist shop. So, and that she, people were saying to her, do you realize how loved you are? And she said, I'm adored. And that is the way you want someone to feel in the hospital. So thank you so much for that, you guys. But we do have a big show for you here today. And, we continue in all the things that we're doing. We're keeping a good thought for COVID. We continue, I'm just going to keep saying it. I want everybody to know that we support the protests that are protesting the ongoing injustice, and that all individuals deserve the same rights to be able to go places, walk down the street, say that I need help, that I, whatever, from our first responders, and that should be met with justice and equality, and it's not, and we are not pretending that it isn't, and we are in support of Black Lives Matter. Want to be very clear about that, and we are looking to see how we can do things better. Taking responsibility for ourselves. But we are continuing to talk about autism because that's what we do. It's called Autism Live. And that message goes hand in hand with all of the other things we've talked about kindness, compassion, accepting and embracing and enjoying diversity and difference. And acknowledging that what Temple Grandin always said, which is different but not less, right? So thrilled to be able to have an opportunity to do that with you today, and with two amazing guests that we're going to be having join us a little bit later on in the show. There are lots of ways for you to connect with us. There are all the same ways, and our live feature is working today. That's one of the, I don't want to say too much because we don't want to jinx that, but you can write into us on our website. There's a chat at the bottom of the page, autism-live.com. You can be watching on Facebook and commenting, on YouTube and commenting. You can be watching us right now live on Periscope and on Twitter. We're live on Twitter, and there's quite a firestorm going on Twitter this morning. We're shouting out to our cast members at Everything's Gonna Be Okay and congratulating them on their renewal for season 2. I couldn't have lived if we had ended on season 1. I just couldn't have made it. So I'm glad that they're gonna get a season 2, and they're all tweeting this morning, and some of it's just like the show. Some of it's incendiary and some of it is hilarious. So there you go. Check those guys out. Also, if you want to watch us in podcast, remember that you can watch us on iTunes or listen to us on iTunes. Same thing on, you can listen to us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Deezer. And Traven's showing you right there all the different ways. Don't forget though that autism-live.com is our homepage. Lots to do there. Hey, we really appreciate it when you subscribe, share, like, review. Those are the things that make a difference for us. You know that it has been our mission from the beginning of time to give you information and inspiration and to make sure that it comes to you free and available around the clock. And the free thing, you know, is sometimes a challenge, but what makes that possible is viewers. And when we are able to say to people, we have viewers, we have gotten, you know, money to be able to stay on because they believe in the mission of what we're doing. So like us, review us, share us, and that not only keeps us on the air, but it allows for other people to see, and we aren't spending advertising dollars because we do not have advertising dollars. Let us be clear about that. Nor do I want to be in the business of the advertising thing, right? That's just, I want to be in the business of what we're the business about, information and inspiration. So give us a like on any of the platforms, review us on iTunes, subscribe to us wherever, whenever possible. Hey, I'm saying hi to Amanda Bright. And I'm saying hi to Sally Burton-Hoyle, who's joining us, who we had on a couple of weeks ago and just loved Sally. So glad that you guys are here. So, okay, like I said, we have got 2 great guests for you, but we like to start Thursday off with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. And this is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. I'm a little bit shaken in my shoes right now because we have Sally Burton-Hoyle and she's an expert. And she's going to let me know if I don't get the jargon right. But the whole purpose of this jargon is that you know that if you don't have a degree in psychology and they start using the jargon terms and you're like, huh, what, hey? And then you have a choice. You either say, excuse me, what are we talking about right now? And then they have to stop and explain it to you. And let's face it, sometimes that you're not going to get it on the first time, right? Unless you're a budding genius. I'm not. Then, you know, or sometimes you will say, all right, I'll Google it later on. I'll look it up later on and I'll figure out what it is. Right. And then like this word today, I will tell you, if you Google this word, you're going to have a good time because I don't think Google recognizes it. Right. So then you put in band and you put in autism, then maybe you'll get something. But what you get sometime is a definition that makes you want to bang your head on a concrete floor. Right. Because it's so full of jargon that you're up a tree. So what we like to do here is we give you the actual definition so you start to get used to terms and what they mean, but mainly we give you the actual definition so we can make fun of it. Let's be real. Then we give you a working definition, which sometimes makes the experts break out into hives. That's just an added bonus, but hopefully gives you the ability to start, you know, it's like having the key to get in the building, right? And maybe, you know, you don't have access to all the rooms yet, but at least you're in the building. I promise you that somewhere down the line, you'll get it. It might not be today, but at some point you'll see something and you go, oh, That's what she was talking about. Now I know what that means. Okay, so we have started in on the verbal operants. There we go, jargon. And today's jargon of the day is manned. And this is one of my favorite ones, because the first time that I was ever in a room and people were using this term, and they probably used it like 30 times in a clinic, and they're like, well, you know, as we're working on man training, and he's manding this, and well, we want him to get him to mand for that. And I chose option B, which is I'll Google that sucker later. And I sat there for a whole 2-hour clinic, not understanding what it meant, you know, looked it up, couldn't find it, and then said to, you know, first one person, I was like, what? I don't even know what the word is you're saying. Are you saying man? Like you want him to man up? Or like, I wasn't sure if there was a D there or not. And then I was like, what on earth are you talking about? And, you know, ABA people, they use this term as if it were something that everybody learns in kindergarten. They're like, oh, manding, right? But let's all remember that we did not come out the womb knowing what manding was. So let's take a look at what our actual definition is, and let's see if we can make some fun of whatever is there. Manned. The manned is a type of verbal behavior that is controlled by a motivating operation, deprivation, or an aversive state, and is followed by specific reinforcement. The manned specifies its own reinforcer. I'm so excited because it's a winner. This definition is probably of no use to anyone unless you've had at least a couple of years of majoring in psychology in college. Right, it's a verbal that's controlled by a motivating operation. Well, if I don't know what a mand is, I don't know what a motivating operation is. And then you're going to clarify it for me with a deprivation state or an aversive state. This is when I begin to pound my head on the pavement. And then this whole thing about the man specifies its own reinforcer. You got me. I have no idea, right? So we're going to throw that definition away. We'll come back to it when we know more another time, and we're going to move on to our working definition. What is a mand? And the thing that always helped me as a parent was to think of the word command. Like when you command something, the end of it is there's an M-A-N-D there. So when you're manding for something, you're requesting. A mand is a request or a command. And how we think of and you and I mand all the time. And when our kids are developing language and moving in a direction that we want them to, they mand all the time too. And we haven't been able, it's stuck, Traven, it's not going on to the working definition. I'm moving on, but it hasn't gone on my computer. There we go, there it is. Oh, it's such a good effect too. So it's requesting, demanding, or asking for something. So think of the little kid who wants a cookie, and think of all the different ways that they could ask for a cookie. They could point to the cookie. If they don't fully have language, that they might do that. They might just try to take the cookie. They might say "kuh," right? They might not be able to say the whole word, but they might be able to say a small portion of it. And that's okay, because they're requesting it. And if we understand what it is, right? They're requesting, whether we understand it or not is a mand, but they're requesting something. And we can shape up that request to be a better representation of what it is. But when you ask for something, so the child eventually, says cook or cook or cookie, whatever it is that they say, they're asking for it and we give it to them. So the reinforcer for that is the thing, they got the thing that they requested. That's the part of the definition about the man specifies its reinforcer. Basically, they're saying you're asking for what you want. And if you give them what they want, it's a reinforcer. And we know from all the things that we talk about here on the show that when we're doing ABA, we want there to be a meaningful reinforcer. And that a lot of times when we're trying to get an individual to do something, we can't assume that we know what the reinforcer is, right? We will do a preference assessment. With an older child, we might say, when you're done with your homework, do you want to take a break and play video games? Or do you want to go outside and play with your friends, right? You're going to get that reinforcer. You finished your homework. Which one do you want? Because it's more meaningful to them. Well, the great thing about the mand is that they've already told you what they want, the thing they requested. So the child who says juice, right? And we give them the juice, they got their reward. It's a little bit easier. You don't have to do the preference assessment. You know, it's like, because we're constantly trying to set up that 3-term contingency where I do something, you know, you say something, I do something, and I get the reward. So what's great about the manding is when they really want it, we don't even have to prompt it, right? They just ask for the thing, they get it, and then they've gotten the reward. We want our kiddos to mand a lot. I mean, like crazy amounts. I can remember a time when my son was 3 that they were telling me that he was on mand training where they were constantly trying to get him to mand and giving him things, right? And I want to say that they were trying to do it 200 times an hour, that was the goal, that he would mand 200 times in an hour. That seems crazy, but if you go and you're around a typical 2.5-year-old, 3-year-old, you see that it's not that crazy, that they're really doing it. So manding is great. It's a very important step. It's the way that we, you know, it's one of the entrees into getting communication. Now, it doesn't have to be verbal. Remember that it could be pointing, it can be clicking an icon, it can be doing a picture exchange where you hand me a little square that has a picture of juice on it, or that says juice on it, right? But I'm telling you, this is what I want, and I'm exchanging that token for the thing that I want. That's still manding, and it's a very important step in getting communication, because I will tell you what happens. If a kid has no way to mand, they're going to tantrum. And they're not going to just tantrum, they're going to lose their you know what. Because think about it, if I took away from you your ability to request something, anything, and you had no way to get your needs met, believe me, you would snake out too. And I would be the first one. I would be the first one. I've thrown tantrums as an adult because I couldn't get anybody to listen to me. And our kids will absolutely do it. But here's the brilliant thing, is that the reverse is also, the opposite is also true. So when you get a kid to mand and they begin to see, oh, I just have to point and you give me that thing, or I just got to say, and you'll give me a cookie. Oh, that's so much easier than throwing myself on the floor and throwing a tantrum. And they really get excited and will do a lot of manding. It's one step along the way. It's not the thing, you know, it's part of the verbal operants that get us to the point where they can fully communicate. It's not the whole thing. And I'm frustrated sometimes that I hear from a lot of families that their kiddos get stuck, you know, being able to label things and being able to mand for some things, and that never gets shaped up into full conversation. So this is one of the things, one of the puzzle pieces to get to that full, but it's an important one. Where everybody needs to be able to mand. Every single person on the face of this planet has the right, and I'm just seeing how well this goes with everything that we're talking about in the world right now. If you can't get, and you're communicating and saying, I need this, and if it can't happen, bad stuff is going to happen, because a person can't live that way. We need to be able to mand and have our requests met. Okay, just having a little moment and epiphany here myself. Okay, so that is our jargon for today. It's a really, really important one, manding. Let's move on to our question of the day, because I got 2 guests and I don't want to belabor. Okay, what do you do when you're upset? How do you communicate your needs? What do you do when you're upset? How do you take care of yourself? How do you request from other people to give you what you need? But how do you also take care of yourself? And I want you to think about this, because it's important that we start with ourselves and understand that we are all different. That I think everybody's upset right now. Like, I don't know anybody who's not upset right now. And I know some people that are exercising like fiends, and there are others of us that are eating. I'm eating. I fully admit this. And I have friends that are, you know, having some wine, you know what I'm saying? And doing other things. And then other people are writing, and other people are out donating their time. everybody is different, right? We are all different in how we deal with upset and how we moderate our own emotions. It's important that we know how to do that for ourselves. And man, have we all been like feet to the fire on this one over the last few months. And just when I think, okay, well, lesson learned, thank you. Can we move off of this page? We go, no, let's check again. Let's see how you do when you have to deal with all these emotions. It's rough, really rough. But I think it's important that we start with ourselves first, right? And this is how we teach this to our kids, is that we teach it ourselves. And then we teach, by the way, other people have this too, and it's different from you. Same, but different. Their way of dealing with things is different. So know for yourself how you are. And if you are a parent of a kiddo on the spectrum, think to yourself about, okay, that's me, but how does my kid, what helps my kid when they're upset? What do they need when they're upset? Because we need to help them to learn to deal with their emotions. I think sometimes it's the opposite that they teach us. So often in these last few weeks, as you guys have written in and said, or when I've talked to parents and they've said, my kid is really upset about this. My first response is yes. Yes, of course they are. Aren't you? Aren't you upset about this too? This is upsetting. And you have a context in which to understand it, and they don't. And even with the context, do we really understand it? Because I've never had this happen before. Have you had this happen before? We are in an unprecedented time. So I think we need to start there and go, wait a second, that emotion is accurate. For the wonderful young man who I adore, and his father, he's on the spectrum, and his father died. And everybody was like, well, he's really upset and he wants to know where he is. Where is his dad? And when is he coming back? And everybody was really crushed about it. And I said, but aren't you thinking that too? Isn't there a part of you that you language it however you need to for yourself and whatever your beliefs are, right? But isn't there a part of you that forgets in a moment and goes, oh, when are we going to see him again? I feel like sometimes our kids are just a level of honest, and they strip it away and they will reveal to us what's really going on. And then we have an opportunity to deal with it. But I just think it's a good thing to admit it and to also build your toolkit. So we go back to the question, which is, what do you do when you're upset? How do you help yourself when you're upset? What are the tools that you use? And what do you think the tools are that your kiddo would benefit from? Okay, now moving on, we always have a topic of the week. And our topic this week is changing our mind, changing our own mind. And, in order to do that, you got to look at what are the limiting beliefs that you have. I talked with a parent the other day who said to me, my child can't do that. And I was like, well, that's true. That's absolutely true. But I hear in your voice that not only is it that my child can't do that, it's that my child can't ever do that. And the parent said, yes, I think that's true. And I think I need to accept that. And I said, what if that isn't true? What if there were a possibility that, it's true for the moment, but it's not true for the long term? Would it be worth looking at that? And it was just an amazing shift. And it's not a guaranteed. It's not like I was saying to her, well, I know for sure. I don't know anything for sure. But it was like, what if we lived in a world where it was a possibility that your child could do that? Maybe not this year, maybe, not next year. But what if we were working towards it? What would life look like? And I don't know what all that was holding down for that parent, but everything opened up. It's like, well, then if it were possible that it might be true, then we could do X, Y, and Z and change her mind. So I'm going to ask you today, what are the limiting beliefs that you're holding on to? What's holding you back? What have you sort of decided and said, maybe it's time to take that out and look at it? I had a good friend who explained to me years ago, the Hubble telescope, sent us all these images and they took all these measurements from them and they said all these things and said, this is what is true. And there were things that we didn't know. And there were all these calculations that they made. And they were like, wow, we've learned so much from the Hubble telescope, and everything, became written in stone and fact. And then somebody discovered that the lens was warped. It was faulty. It had a fault in it that gave readings that were not true. And they, had to go back and go, well, then this may not be true. And the unraveling the sweater that had been built around the facts of the Hubble telescope, everybody had to go back and question, like a decade's worth of work. And the friend was saying to me, our lives are that way sometimes, that we hold all these things to be true, and then we find out, oh, maybe that's a product of the lens, and maybe the lens isn't accurate. Ask yourself, what's holding you back? Is it at the base of it is a thought that may or may not be true? And then change your mind. It's amazing how the doors open up, and it only takes a second, and it's free. So that's our topic for this week. And this week we really have focused on having guests who can take us to another place. Place we haven't been before, place we haven't looked at before, was something that we previously thought, I don't know. Joining us in just a second, we're going to be joined by Yadira Calderon. And she's an amazing mom and self-advocate, and I have a brilliant, wonderful daughter who's so talented. And Yadira had a devastating loss recently, and has been dealing with grief, and has had an opportunity to look at a grief in a different way, and has made her look at grief with our kiddos and how we talk about grief. And I'm going to let her talk more about that. But because she's an artist, and because her daughter's an artist, they are expressing this grief and these feelings through art. And I said to her, we really got to have you on the show to talk about this. I want to thank everybody. Jill is saying, it can't possibly, she said, I love your voice. It can't possibly be mine. I have one of the most grating voices that there is. You must be talking about somebody else. Christina says, morning, Shannon and Traven. Morning to you and your littles. Give him a hug. And I don't just shut down, don't eat. Yeah, well, that's, tell me. I just shut down. They don't eat. Well, I eat, that's what I do. Okay, and Jill says, we're going through this now in a 2.5-year-old. I think you're talking about Manding. Joe says, hang in there, Jill, and I love that. Amanda says, my son hates it if I raise my voice. If anyone raises their voice over the years, I have learned to be patient and keep my same tone because it truly upsets him. And I just want to let you know that when my son was little, he, they say that there's that connection between a mom and a kid, that they can hear your voice in the womb. And if anybody else got loud, he was fine. But if I got loud, he could not take it. He shut down. He could not take it. And as you know, I'm a very loud person. And I get excited and I get passionate, and he couldn't. And so I, for years, had to moderate my tone. I don't have to anymore. I just want to let you know that may not be. And it was hard for me. I was like, oh, it's like I'm having to be not who I am to meet him where he is. And how will that work out? It did. And I just want to encourage you not to worry about that. They say I'm constantly reminding myself, if he gets upset, it upsets me. So if that can be avoided, then I just simply avoid it. Definitely practice tons of antecedent modifications with my kid. I hear you. I just hope that at some point you like us, that works out. I do think that just like taste buds, when we're young, our taste buds we have more taste buds, they die over time. And so if like broccoli is overcooked, kids can't, it's too acidic. It just tastes terrible to them. It's why kids tend not to like vegetables. They get overcooked and it's too acid on their tongue. But over time, the taste buds moderate and some of them die off, and we're not as sensitive. And then we're able to eat broccoli and hopefully not gag and throw up, even if it's overcooked. I love overcooked broccoli now, by the way. But love me some burnt broccoli. That is some good stuff right there. But with a little caramelized onion. No, I'm not a foodie. What makes you say that? Okay, so, but the point is that sometimes the sensory things, as kids get older, especially if we're working on them, they moderate, and they're able to even read some of Carly Fleischman's stuff, because she wasn't able to pick out sounds. And then when she started to be like 11, 12, 13, it moderated a little bit. She still has bad days, and there are other things that can come into play. Sometimes diet has a factor, but they don't necessarily stay where they are sensory wise. Now, the flip is also true too, that when puberty comes, that sometimes we have new things that crop up. So anyway, speaking of which, speaking of you know, we need to things cropping up and kids going into puberty. Let's welcome Yadira Calderon to the show, and let's talk with her about her fabulous daughter and about how they have been relanguaging grief for themselves. And is Traven, is she with us? Has she joined?
I'm here.
You're there. Yay, I got all worried. Oh, don't you look beautiful? I love that blouse. That's gorgeous.
Thank you. We do.
You look fabulous. So how are you? And there's your daughter. Hello, sweetheart. And oh, now she can hear me. Hi, how are you?
Good. How about you?
I'm good. You know what? I heard about you skating and I was so amazed a couple of months
Really?
ago. I did. I sometime I want to be able to come and see you skate.
Please.
Thanks.
Yeah.
By the way, my grandma passed away on May 1st.
I heard that. That is a very sad thing.
Yeah.
But your mom said that you've been doing a lot of things with art to be able to deal with how you feel about it.
Yeah, like this.
Oh my gosh. That's absolutely beautiful. And so is that your grandma, the angel?
Yes.
And how do you feel when you make your art about your grandma?
Sometimes really sad.
But does it help to use the colors and to get the shape and get the story the way you want it in the piece of art?
Yeah.
Does it? Let me see that one that you're holding up. Hold it up a little bit more. Oh my goodness, that's absolutely.
It's a teddy bear that the people that worked at a hospital place gave to my grandma.
That's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. These are wonderful works of art, and it's a wonderful way to remember your grandma.
Yeah.
Do you want to show us another one?
Oh, yeah, that was all.
And here we have this big one here. Yes. I brought this one.
It's called the Tree of Life.
Oh my goodness. So you like to work with lots of different kinds of things, because I see paint, but I also see that there's texture to this one.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's true.
And so where do you get your ideas from?
My mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes the ideas I make, my mom is not interested.
Well, you know what? That's always going to be life. But do you still do it even if she's not interested?
Of course I do.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
By the way, my mom and I are using the same earphones.
I see that. I love it. It's very togetherness. And so when you do your art projects, do you do them with your mom? Does she do art projects too?
Yeah, one time she did an art project and it was so beautiful. I wish she had it so she could show you.
Thank you. It's my release also, seeking a break, looking for that peace, as a way also to connect with Tomas as she is creating and coming up with these incredible ideas, because many times I just ask her questions, you know? And with this instance, with the art that she created for honoring my mom, her grandma, whom she witnessed the whole process. Because thanks to COVID-19, in our circumstances, we were able to be there for her and give her love, attention, and as a family to come together and get ready for what we knew was inevitable. And for my daughter to be prepared for what we could handle, and us not knowing how she was going to be able to handle it, that's where all of the convoluted work came in. And that's where all of the process, in my case, as the parent surrounded by family and a group of love, I was able to concentrate on her. And everyone was asking me, how do you feel? How are you doing? How are you coping? Middle of March, April. And I told them, I am 50% my daughter one quarter I am emotional turmoil, one quarter I am focused on doing what I need to do. And everyone was very supportive of that. Everyone was very caring, and everyone was telling me, good, as long as you're letting us know what it is that you need, how it is that you feel, then we are okay with that. So doing art with her many times, it was also like, I can breathe, you know? And she would create something out of the many things that she did in the last 2.5 months. And I would come up with my own style, or just even if it is just scribbles or doodles, you know, just that release. And that's why it was such an important time for her and I to be a part of this process. And I'm very fortunate that I could maintain the circumstances as controlled as I could for her, me understanding what it is that she needs. This whole process for us parents caring for and raising our children in the autism spectrum, we have all grieved in different circumstances. There are parents that still talk to me about grieving their child's diagnosis, and so understandable. And in this case, we kick it up a notch, and we are dealing with grief based on a loved one, and that sense of loss of that person that is not coming back. And those are heavy duty topics to work with you as an adult. Imagine an almost 12-year-old who now can speak, who now can express herself, and she has this outlet. And I just went to it full on force, gone home, and I reminded her the night before my mom passed away on April 30th, Tomais was going to go to her auntie's for a sleepover. I get a phone call at 11:30 from my sister. Tomais is in pain, inexplicable all of a sudden. So I talked to her, and she says she's screaming as if skin is being pulled off her. So I tell my sister, don't worry, I'll go pick her up and just bring her back. In the meantime, we know that my mom is going through her process, and we don't know when the time is going to come that this is it. She will no longer be with us physically. So I pick up the mice at 11:30 at night. We are on the bridge, Clearwater Beach, crossing the big bridge from the Clearwater Beach area into the city. At the top of the bridge, I reminded her, Tomais tells me, it's like, Mom, I don't think Grandma's going to be with us much longer. And I reminded her, Tomais, this is our mission. And that's why we came here. And that's why in these circumstances, we have been allowed to be together. And it could happen tonight. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen in 6 weeks. But we are here together, and we are here to give and show love. She wants to say something.
By the way, when I had here's something funny. I got 2 things to share. When I had the pain, my mom had to carry me from my aunt's apartment down to the elevator and to our car.
Piggyback ride session.
I made her exercise the entire time. And also, here's something I experienced. I had an image of my grandma passing away in her bed and me in pain. And my mom had to take care of my grandma and me that night. And then we were both moaning and we were having pain. And my mom received a message that one of their family members, their baby, was experiencing pain too. And we were all connecting. We all knew that Abuela was going to pass away in any moment. And at 5 a.m., she passed away. And at 7, when I just woke up, it seemed like a peaceful morning, but it turned out to be heartbreaking. And I saw her lifeless body, and I gently kissed her by the hand, and I said goodbye. My aunt couldn't stop crying. She was crying so much. I understood her feelings.
It's a very sad thing, but clearly you were very connected with your abuela. And,
yes.
And that, some of your talent probably comes from her, don't you think?
Yes. Yes, yes, and even that little baby I was talking about, Kadosh, he also had that connection too.
Yeah, there was a baby in the family that night he was completely restless. The parents were dumbfounded. They didn't know where did this come from, and he was just inconsolable. And mom and dad, first-time parents, they were like, oh my goodness. And here we have Tomais also with this inexplicable physical connection, the body sharing with us a lot of the emotions.
Yes, and I see and feel things that other people can't. And it's inexplicable.
This is the new word she's learned.
Love it. What a great word, inexplicable. I think
Yeah.
that's amazing. And what I love is that you put your feelings and your thoughts and the things that you see into your artwork.
Yeah.
Totally.
And other things that you do, because clearly when you skate, you bring all of you into skating, all that you are and all that you know. So
Yeah.
so that is why you're so talented, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you're just about to turn 12, is that right?
I just turned 12 on May 30th.
Wow.
That
Happy birthday.
was 29 days after my grandma passed away.
Wow. And what do you, when you think about when you get older, what do you think you want to do?
I don't know. Travel the world, sell art, and put art into cakes and desserts and candy.
Because you like to cook too, right?
Yeah, I cook breakfast every morning. I'm still learning how to make lunch and dinner.
That's amazing. You are such a gift to your mom.
Yeah.
Thank you.
By the way, there's one thing I want to say.
Yeah.
One time I heard my friend Jessie say that one time she bakes Oreo cookies and popcorn together and it was delicious. Can't try that, Mom?
I know. Save us almighty.
I am so loving talking to you guys, and unfortunately we're running out of time here. I want to make sure that your mom tells us where we can go to follow your adventures and to hear more about you, the two of you together, because you're on an amazing journey that's really inspirational.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. If you want to follow Rainbow Mosho, you can do so on Instagram and Facebook. So just the word Rainbow and Mosho, Mosho. If you would like to see some of our art in the form of postcards and prints, you can go to our website, www.autismhappykingdom.com. And
because
yes,
we can buy cards that she has designed. Correct?
Definitely. All of these cards, they are part of the new COVID-19 art series. All of the different art emotions expressing what she's felt, what she's been through in the last 2.5 months, particularly in this period when we were with grandma, caring for grandma. This drawing in particular, it was created 1 hour after waking up, after understanding and explaining to her and crying and going through all of the emotions that we go through of finding out that a loved one has passed away. And it is very meaningful because I told her, whatever you cannot tell us, please put it in art. Please draw something so we can know that you understand what is happening. And if you need to speak, but use your art as the source to share your emotions. And this is what she came up with, and this is just too powerful.
Well, you are an amazing mom, and you are such a source of inspiration, and your daughter is beautiful. And I just think that, what you have been doing, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Sending you air hugs, virtual hugs.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And I know that we've been talking about having you do something a little bit more regular here on the show with some art, because I know people are already writing in and saying she's amazing and how talented, and we need to know more about what you're doing. Please accept my love and condolences, and then we will talk to you soon.
Appreciate many, many hugs, many blessings, and keep us inspired, Shannon, with the work that you keep doing, opening up the door for all of us to keep sharing reality.
I absolutely adore you. And people are saying that they would like to have this information in Spanish, please. So can you in Spanish tell them where they can reach you?
Sí, definitivamente. Saludos. Pueden encontrar a Rainbow Motion, la palabra Rainbow arcoiris, MOSHO, en Facebook e Instagram. Y pueden visitar nuestra página en la internet www.autismhappykingdom.com. Así que a las órdenes y espero que nos visiten.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch, okay?
We shall. Thank you, Shannon. Everyone take care and many blessings.
You too. Bye-bye. It's just a full show. We could spend hours talking, but we don't want to miss Courtney Tarbox, who is, I believe, joining us right now. So excited to welcome her to the show because we want to talk with her about an upcoming webinar that she's going to be doing, teaching everybody at the webinar how to do, it's a series, how to do ACT, acceptance commitment treatment therapy with kids on this. There's Courtney. Courtney, welcome to Autism Live.
Thank you so much.
I'm so thrilled. I can't believe this is the first time we've ever had you on the show, but we are thrilled and delighted to have you here. I was just saying that you've got, well, first of all, tell people a little bit about you and what you do and where you do it.
Sure. Okay. Well, yeah, thank you for having me. I am the Director of Clinical Development at First Steps for Kids, and we're an ABA autism provider. We have 5 centers now, mostly in Southern California, and then we have one up in Northern California.
Wonderful, and so thrilled to have you here. But you've got a webinar series that's coming up that's really cutting edge. Everybody's talking about it. I'm so excited for you and for us. Tell us what the series is and tell us all the deets.
No pressure, huh? Everyone's talking about it. Well, so
everybody, the buzz is like, everybody's like elbowing each other going, I got to get to that.
Well, thank you for that. So it's a webinar. It's a 3-part series. And for each one of the sessions, I'm going to have one of the co-authors from the manuscript that we published co-presenting with me. And the manuscript that we just put out was part of the emergency series that Behavior Analysis in Practice put out specifically to give ABA clinicians practical tools to put into play immediately during this COVID pandemic, when we know a lot of our clients are at home and things are, more difficult than ever for them and for their families.
Yeah, I mean, like, it wasn't like everybody had a year to think about it and go, hey, if we ever had to all be home and do what we do, how would we do it? But I love that you guys really hit the ground running and kept pumping out information for practitioners that was top-notch, cutting edge, giving them opportunities to learn. It was hive mind and really, really brilliant. So you put out a manuscript. What was the manuscript?
Okay, let's see here. I'm going to actually look so I don't get the title wrong. It's called Taking Action, with ACT in caps, which I'll discuss. Taking Action, 18 Simple Strategies for Supporting Children with Autism During the COVID-19 Pandemic.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
It is. That's why I had to look.
Okay, and you said that you co-authored that with someone?
Yeah, actually, several others. They are all at First Steps with me. Let me list them off to give them credit where credit's due. So Erin Silverman, Amanda Chastain, Alex Little, Tara Bermudez, who you know, and then Jonathan Tarbox, who you know as well. So we're all at First Steps, and this paper was really focused on acceptance and commitment training, which is a behavior analytic approach to teaching complex skills and really addressing kind of our private verbal behavior in behavioral, non-relatable lingo, in relatable lingo, just really addressing our thoughts and feelings, which are not what, you hear a lot of about in ABA, and how to incorporate that into our programming and our treatment. And so the fit just seems too perfect to not address. I think that ACT specifically is so well suited to address these challenges that all of our learners are facing right now, with like a whole new set of expectations just being thrown at them without any sort of warning.
Yeah, and we've talked a little bit before on the show about ACT. You know, I'm a fan, and in particular, you know, I've tried to focus on the show about the fact that there is just more and more research all the time talking about how when caregivers of kids who are on the autism spectrum are given the opportunity to access ACT and use it in their lives, not only do they manage their stress better, but there seems to be a direct correlation to their child doing better. I don't think it's a magic trick. I don't think it's, you know, smoke and mirrors. Having been someone who's had the benefit of going through that, I can see how my ability to deal with whatever I have going on helped my child, because it gave me the ability to let him have a little bit more room. So I'm a big fan, but you're taking it to the next oomph. Instead of saying, okay, I'm going to do a thing about how do we do this with caregivers, what's the topic for this webinar series?
Yeah, and what you just mentioned is obviously incredibly important, and I'm so glad that that's your experience and with ACT as well as a caregiver. And Dr. Evelyn Gould, who I know that you know as well, and she still provides consults for us at First Steps, but she completed her dissertation here for that exact thing, just supporting our families with the lens of acceptance and commitment training. And really her focus was to give them tools, even for things like self-care and making time for themselves, and then seeing how that, like you were mentioning, can then it seems so obvious that we even have to research this, right? Like obviously then that would have a positive effect on their children.
But even, you know, I mean, I had the benefit of that, and even I, like, who was like, duh, of course, I was shocked that from starting and having access to and doing some of the things that we did, which, you know, seemed like that they were no big deal while we were doing them, but had an impact on how I felt that day, had an impact on how I felt that week, and how I parented that week, that month, that, you know, year, so that when we looked back, the things that I had been able to identify at the very beginning before we started that were important to me had shifted massively. Like there was such a difference that even I was shocked, and I was like, wow, this works. So yes, so it's so important that the caregivers give it, but as I said, you're taking it to the next level.
We're trying, and you know, we're not the only ones. ACT is catching as far as including it into programming for learners, and then more specifically, our paper was for children with autism. It's still very, very new, and I think, you know, part of the reason for that is that ACT, the description of it can be very like touchy-feely, and then with that kind of messy. And within the ABA world, we like our data, we like things clean, we like our definitions, and so it can be tough to kind of fit acceptance and commitment training into that box. But I kind of think that makes it all the more important. Real life is messy, and we're not going to have clean definitions, and we'll figure it out as we go. And really, we're still collecting data, and our interventions are still function-based, which is like the bread and butter of ABA. And so as long as we're doing it systematically, then I think that we owe it to our learners to start to really include what we can talk with them about, like that they're talking to themselves about, and what they're feeling into the programming. And that's what ACT is all about. It's a model for behavioral flexibility, to really give people the skills to live a more valued life, even when stuff is tough and your mind is getting in your way of really like moving forward.
Yeah. I love me some BCBAs, right? I am the biggest fan of BCBAs that there is on the planet, because I've seen the benefit of what you guys do. Sometimes I get frustrated with the jargon that you all love. But that's okay. I accept that about you. And it has been interesting because I was introduced to ACT by BCBAs, but I always find it funny that how BCBAs get a little bit like, well, you know, it might be too, I don't get it, because for me, it seems like you're identifying what's important to you, which is part of a preference assessment, and then you're moving towards what's important to you, which seems like a reinforcer. So I don't ever know what the BCBAs, where BCBAs get a little squishy with it, but I love that more and more BCBAs are joining the bandwagon and saying, hey, we think this is an important companion piece, because we do have to deal with how somebody feels and what they're thinking about how they feel, because that's all part of getting to the goal, which is the reinforcer. So you're really, this webinar, tell us what the dates on it are and how people sign up, and then what you're going to be, because it's 3 dates, right?
Yeah. Oh man, I should have written down the dates so that I don't get this wrong. So it's a 3-session series, and it starts on Tuesday, June 9th, and then the following 2 Tuesdays.
Okay.
And so for the first session, Jonathan Tarbox will be accompanying me.
And I assume that you are too.
You know, most of the time. But you're honestly a huge personal hero of his. And so he was so excited that I have the opportunity to be on today. So he'll be joining me.
Love you. So he'll be there.
Yes, on June 9th, and it's from 1 to 2:30, as are all of the sessions. And for the first
time, right?
Yes, thank you, Pacific time. For the first session, we're really going to be talking about the conceptual piece and the behavior analytic underpinnings of acceptance and commitment training, just to make sure that we're, staying true to our science and addressing any concerns that BCBAs or anyone, wanting to join the webinar may have before we dive in. And then the next session will be with Tara Bermudez. And there we'll really be talking about some sample function-based interventions to talk about the 6 self-management areas that ACT addresses. And within our paper, we wanted to give very concrete examples of, so that clinicians could go put strategies into action right away. So we have accompanying worksheets for a lot of the interventions that we discuss. And we want to go over some of those strategies. And we want to highlight that this, as with any ABA approach, is not a cookie cutter intervention. And so these are some examples of what to do. And then we really want to get people thinking about how their learners and what they're struggling with, how they can then individualize and tweak these interventions to apply it for them. And then the final session will be with Erin Silverman, another program director at First Steps. And we're going to be talking about how to sort of wrap all of this up and put it into action and tie it to values, like you were mentioning, because, and that should be everything. I mean, we want to have true meaning tied to everything that we're doing, so that it makes sense about why we're doing it, and always having that lens of what's important to the learner or whoever we're working with. Otherwise, why are we working on it?
Exactly. Man, I just love the whole thing. So where do they go to sign up? And then we're going to have a little conversation about who is this right for and who is this not right for. But where would you go to sign up?
So it's being hosted by Connections Behavior Planning and Intervention. So you can just Google them, or it's connections-behavior.com. And then they have a whole list of different webinars that they are offering. And the title of our webinar is ACT for ASD series with Courtney Tarbox and guests.
I love it. And Traven, just a note to Traven, let's try to get that up on our Facebook comment so people can also find it there. I know it's on my Facebook feed, and I'll try to move it up too, because there's been a lot of things going on that, probably moved it down, but it's there. But so they can go and register. Now, is there a cost?
There is. So for all 3, let's see here, for all 3, and again, they're from 1 to 2:30, the cost is $75 for the full series. And then if you'd like to just attend a single session, then it's $30 for that hour and a half.
Okay. a great price as these things go. This
Yeah.
and for people who need continuing education credits, they can get CEUs from this. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah, and it will be recorded and offered to attendees. So if you can't make it to one of the sessions, or if the time just doesn't work, then they'll have access to it afterward as well.
Very cool. But now, who do you think this is right for? Is this obviously for professionals? This is a no-brainer. That would be lovely to have BCBAs and people that are working with kiddos on the autism spectrum, right? That's a no-brainer.
Yeah. But we really, I'm really glad that you asked that, because I would think I would have forgot to mention this, but that was the aim with our paper, and really the aim for the webinar too, is just to have it be very accessible to anyone who is working with a child struggling right now, which is probably most parents, whether the child has autism or not. And all of these strategies can be used with any learner, with, if their own thoughts or feelings are kind of making these times more difficult. So a few of the interventions I came up with in talking to my own young kids who are 8 and 5, and just what they're going through right now. And if it seems like it kind of hit when we used these interventions and talked about things, and we included it in the paper. So there are a couple of those in there. And so I think, any parents wanting some new ideas of how to talk to their kids about dealing with tough stuff, because it's important, this could be a useful webinar.
Okay, so to be clear, if you're a parent and you've not taken a psychology class, but you're like, I want to know about this, I want to learn about this, I want to know more about it, you absolutely can come, and that we think that it's going to be accessible to them. Like I know Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, and I know he's always, language accessible. You're always language accessible. Everybody that you've said, I think, is language accessible, but let's, a parent could feel comfortable at this webinar.
That's the goal, absolutely. And I'm going to do my best to also attend to the chat feature. This is a new format for me as far as like presenting and training. But we're going to do our best. And I would really encourage parents to attend and ask questions and hold us accountable for, like, if I don't know that acronym, what does that mean?
Well,
and,
you know me, I'll be in the chat going, I don't know what that is.
Don't say it like that. And that's how we tried to write the paper as well. We did like some conceptual definitions, and then right below that, it's a practical description of what we're talking about. So that really is the goal, that anyone who would like to can access the information.
I love it. So really, it's like talking about a new toolbox.
Yes. Yep. It's still ABA. It was developed to be behavior analytic, and it's also a very common psychological model as well. But we're talking about how to put it into play within ABA treatment models.
And they want to know one more time, what is ACT?
ACT. Okay. So when we talk, so it's commonly referred to as acceptance and commitment therapy. And then more recently, we're talking about it as acceptance and commitment training when we're using it as a piece of behavior intervention or within ABA models, and not a part, of other domains of psychology. So I prefer to use, acceptance and commitment training. And really, it's a model of behavioral flexibility. So it aims to teach us 6 main self-management repertoires, essentially, to help us be more flexible, so that like our own language is not preventing us from doing things that are important to us. Because, in life, when stuff gets tough, it's pretty tempting to kind of avoid or put things off or tell yourself you'll do it later, or that you don't need to do it, when probably in the back of your head that it's important to do. And so that's what ACT is all about, is giving you the tools to do what's hard because it's important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a model because my parents didn't know any different. But if you were having an emotion about something, or something was difficult, you were told to just suck it up, right? Quit your crying, just suck it up, just do it. And I think that, sometimes people will experience different kinds of therapy where either you get stuck in the emotion and you just marinate in the emotion, where you're supposed to somehow push it down. And what I love about ACT is that it says, yes, this is happening.
Yep.
This
Yep.
is happening and you're feeling this way. And why are you feeling this way? And why is it important what you're feeling? And why is, you know, why is there's something that's important that's helping you to feel this way? And now let's look at all of that, but then let's look at the bigger picture, and then we'll sort out how to move forward.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I think that's the kind of like the heart of ACT, is that we want to make space for those difficult thoughts and those difficult feelings, and not just try to push them away, because the more that we do that, they're probably going to keep popping up, and then we're not learning how to continue to behave in important ways with the presence of those difficult thoughts. So it's all about kind of making space for them, acknowledging them, and maybe even moving toward the difficulty because of your values that are tied to that behavior.
It's amazing, and it really helped me, and I know that it's helped a lot of other parents who have kiddos on the spectrum. And I gotta say, you know, because both my son and I were going through it together, it has helped him. And I see that like the pebble in the pool with the ripples, because I see my son interact with his friends when somebody's getting upset, and I see him utilizing the tools that we learned, and then they pick it up. It's just, if you are looking for a better model for how to live and be happier, and you know, especially in this world that we're living right now, this is very accessible. It is not, you know, something that you're going to contemplate your navel for 3 years. It's not like that. I encourage you, go to this workshop and see if there's a way that it can help you to help your child. So we've gone way over, and I apologize for keeping you late, but it was too good to stop. Again, say the name of the place that they want to go, and then we're going to try to put it on our Facebook too.
Sure, yeah. It's Connections Behavior Planning and Intervention is who is offering it. And if you go to connections-behavior.com and then look for their events tab, then they'll have a list of all the different webinars.
And if people wanted to know more about First Steps, where would they go?
First Steps for Kids, FOR.com.
Wonderful. Will you please give everybody my love and hug those babies of yours? I can't believe they've gotten that much older.
I know. I adore you, Shannon. Thank you so much for having me on.
Feeling is mutual, and I just have loved, you know, I feel like you guys are making inroads into something that is really, really important. And all I keep hearing, I have not been able to be at one of the presentations that you have done, but all I keep hearing is that you are the presenter that is like just hot. So that you are cutting it up. So tearing it up, that's the phrase I want. So I'm excited to be there at these webinars, and I'm so excited that you guys are making it accessible for everybody. Thank everybody.
Well, thank you for coming. I'm excited to have you there.
Yay. You have a wonderful weekend, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
See you next Tuesday.
Okay, sounds good. Bye.
And we've gone way over, you guys. I apologize, but somebody asked us to go longer yesterday, so we just did. We went 8 minutes longer. And thank you guys for being here. Don't forget, tomorrow, Nancy Allspot Jackson is going to be here with us for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We're going to cover some news updates. And then we have Thomas Island. Thomas Island is going to be here with us. He's a wonderful self-advocate, a speaker. And he is going to be talking with us about some important things that we need to consider for adults on the autism spectrum during this COVID pandemic. I know he has been doing some live webcasts, and he's got some things that he wants to share that we think are important. So that will be tomorrow on the show. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. My screen is doing all kinds of interesting things, but thrilled to be here with you guys. And it is time for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Shannon Penrod, and I don't know where Nancy is. I'm a little worried. I thought she was coming here, and maybe she might be in the waiting room, they said. If she is in the waiting room, let her in, Draven. Let her in, let her in. I'm thrilled to be here with you on this Wednesday. This is how complicated this week has been. Is that Miss Nancy?
Yes. Hi, Shannon. For some reason, I'm having a problem getting on my computer. So I'm on my phone.
Okay. Well, hey, that works. I was just saying to them, welcome. I was telling them, welcome, it's Wednesday, but it's not, it's Friday. That's how discombobulated I am.
Okay.
And I'm going to say, we got a couple of things going on here this morning. You may hear some new barking in my makeshift studio here. I have a new guest in here. His name is Charles the Cheese. And if at some point he comes over here, I might pick him up and show you guys. He is the new pet at our house. We have adopted one of Joanne Laura's dogs. And he just came to our house last night, and we're very excited that he's here. We're socializing him with my dog, my Cujo dog, and so we're keeping them separate right now. So that's why Charles is locked in here with me. So he may growl at some point, and you might hear my dog freaking out on the other side of the door. It's all part of life. We also want to do a big shout out to our wonderful friend, Joanne Lara. And her birthday was 2 days ago, and originally Joanne had said that she wanted to have a birthday party celebration of life party that she was going to be holding today. She's still in the hospital, so that is not happening. But what I love is that her close friends are going to be having a celebration for her and of her life today, that we are hoping that she will have an opportunity to watch from the hospital. We're going to be doing that over on the Ed Asner Family Center, the Center at Home show, which is at 3 p.m. Pacific time. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be coming in. Some celebrities apparently might be showing up. We're all going to tell happy, wonderful stories about Joanne and amazing times that we've had with her. And so you can go on Facebook and go to the Ed Asner Family Center and check that out. It starts at 3 o'clock this afternoon Pacific time. Nancy, are you going to be able to join in that?
Yes.
Oh, we got a little bit of an echo. I think you got to mute. Is your computer working now? So all of those things going on, and we've got a great guest for you here today, but we've got some news. Were you able to get what I sent you, Nancy?
Yes, I was.
Because I you know me, I'm going to go off a little bit. I am want to do that. I had said the other day, and we've been talking about it every day, and I want to be very clear, and there have been some people who have had, I don't know, I don't understand. But everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I want to be very clear that we are here on Autism Live, we are in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. We are in support of Black Lives Matter, and that we feel that it's not enough for us to just say it, but that we need to do better and be better here. And a friend of the show, someone I love and respect, sent me an email, sent me a Facebook post this morning that they wanted to post on my page with a video and said, I think you'd be interested in watching this. This woman seems very informed and has done her research. And I started watching the video, and it is a young Black woman who says, I was afraid of retribution. I didn't want to come out and say this, but she goes on to give this impassioned speech about how she is not in support of George Floyd. And while I respect our viewers' right to her opinion, I respect this young woman's right to her opinion, the top of my head came off and flew around the room, because her argument, and I did not stay for the whole thing because I couldn't, I was like gonna throw up on her. But her argument is that the Black community is the only community that stands in defense of members of their society that she refers to them. I don't want to misquote her, but she says the lowest common denominator. And she says they're the only group in society that does that. And that is the premise upon which she builds her entire argument about how, this George Floyd thing is and she does say, I'm not in support of what the cop did, but, why have we come forward for this person who was part of the lowest common denominator of our portion of society? And and as a mother of an individual on the spectrum, it made my blood boil, because and it also offended me, because if that were true, there would be no one who was interested in prison reform. There would be no public defenders that were any other color in the rainbow than Black, and that is not true. And my position is that it is justice for all. Even when you have broken the law, you are entitled to justice. And so I said to the friend, I'm so, I appreciate you get to have your opinion, but I find this offensive. I'm not posting it on my page. And I had said the other day when we were talking about this, I said, if you cannot look at that video of that police officer with his neck on that man's, with his knee on his neck, and say, and everybody be sitting there so calmly as he says, help, I can't breathe, and nobody changing what they're doing at all, and nobody saying maybe we should try something different. If you can't look at that and be 100% clear that that is not justice, if you can't look at that and be worried about humanity, that as parents of kids who are differently abled, we have to be concerned about that, because we have also seen this happen with our kids.
Right, which is a good lead into our first story today.
Which is why I'm bringing it up.
Okay, great.
And I said then, I've said all along, and it leads into our guest that we're having with us today, because if we do not give our police better training and police them to do their training, it is to the detriment of all. And it's certainly, you cannot deny that it has been the detriment of people whose skin is dark. If they are any kind of brown or Black, it has been to their detriment. But I'm telling you, it is to the detriment of all of us. If we do not have justice for all, then we might as well shove everything into the ocean. And we're already seeing that this is causing unrest in the Middle East, which leads us into our first story today. Nancy, do you want to talk about this while I take a breath and calm down?
Yes. This story is about an autistic, a man. I think he was he was 32. He was a Palestinian, and he was shot by Israeli police, and they believed he had a gun, but he did not have a gun. They found after they shot and killed him that there was no weapon on him. He was on his way to, or either on his way or coming from the center where he goes for a workshop.
Because he's on the spectrum, and
he's on the spectrum. He's autistic. Limited. He only spoke to his mother and father.
Yeah, limited ability to communicate.
Yeah, only spoke to his mother and father.
Right. And the police, for whatever reason, saw him as a person who was suspect. They asked him to stop. He didn't. They pursued him. He ran. His parents say that they do not think that he understands what a police officer is. And so
Right.
they shot him and killed him. He was shot twice in the chest, a young man on the autism spectrum. And as a result of I mean, there are people protesting, and, saying that this is not right. This is not going to work. And of course, the Palestinians are saying that this is their equivalent of a George Floyd.
Right. There are actually signs. They had protesters with signs, "Justice for Iyad" and "Justice for George." So,
but the Palestinian Authority has now responded by saying it is no longer, as a result of this, bound by agreements with Israel and the United States, which backs Israel keeping part of the West Bank, including those relating to security. So this is having ginormous repercussions in the Middle East. Like, we're talking about a very unstable region to begin with, but this single act is threatening to topple the entire thing. And think about this. Think about having a 32-year-old young man who is walking to his center where he is going to be for the day, and he is shot and killed by the police. And, later on, when they checked him, they saw that he clearly did not have a gun. But if we do not give better training to our police, not just here in the United States, but around the world, how can we expect anything different to happen? We've already seen this happen many, many times. There was the story that we covered 2 years ago, Nancy, the young man who had Down syndrome, and his caregiver took him to the movies and said, "I'm going to go get the car. You stand right here and wait." He started hand flapping. It elevated into something. And by the time the caregiver came back, he was dead on the sidewalk because an off-duty policeman had held him face down, and he choked. And he died. They don't get to do do-overs. If we don't and there was the young man last year who had the little piece of string and was playing with the string outside the office, where his mother was, looking out the window watching him. She turned around and a police officer had him on the ground and he was scuffed up, but she, was within running distance. Who knows what could have happened? Look, I understand that it's a difficult thing for the police officers, but if we don't give better training, and if we don't police when they target specific people, and if we are saying that they are not targeting people who have darker skin, we are lying to ourselves. We have to do better. Have to do better.
I mean, I think as mothers, we all put ourselves in the place of the mothers of these young people. And I can't even imagine why. I could see Wyatt running from the police if he didn't understand what they were asking for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And our guest today,
our children.
Our guest today is going to talk to us about, for our kids, what we can do for the other side. I want to be very clear that I am not equating these things with what happened to George Floyd. Because it's a different set of circumstances. But I do think that training our police and policing our police are the answer to both questions. However, there are things that we can do on our side as parents of individuals that are, differently abled, to help them to minimize, if they are stopped by the police, that they aren't caught up in something difficult. Because Tom Island is going to be here with us, and he and his mom have been at the forefront of that.
Absolutely. Emily has been a real advocate for police safety, and I'm glad we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah. Okay. So, but we do have other stories here, and they're of a nicer ilk. And I had to look far because there were so many bad stories. But I wanted us to have something uplifting.
Great story.
I did not know that PBS was starting a new animated series with a superhero kid. It's a group of superhero kids, and one of them is on the autism spectrum. We're really
right. It's called Hero Elementary.
And I love it. I love that each one of the kids has a superpower, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily an easy thing. So one of the kids can fly, but is afraid of heights. How much do you love that? There's a girl with the power to teleport, a boy who creates force fields of bubbles, and there is a boy with an array of really cool gadgets who's on the autism spectrum.
Right.
And I so love this. Thank you, PBS. You guys are always at the forefront. You know, we've seen for, please, Mr. Rogers, I mean, was incredible in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s with what he was doing to help children to be able to language the things that adults just don't know how to deal with, right? But kids, when we give them the right information and say, here's a kid who can do this, they're not so good at this, but they can do this, kids get it. Kids get it. So thank you, PBS. We're really excited. I don't know, I don't see here when it's about to start, but it's each episode is only 11 minutes. It says, oh, it premieres on Monday. It premieres on Monday on PBS stations and on PBS Kids 24/7 channel and PBS Kids digital platforms. They're recommending it for ages 4 through 7. But you know what? For I would say for anybody who wants to watch it, because sometimes we have kids that are a little bit older who might find this really something very exciting and something.
Right. Hero Elementary, once again, is the name of the show. And they don't make a big deal about the character of AJ Gadgets. They just, he's part of the team.
Yeah.
They don't single out his autism. He does have some issues like not liking sensory issues, doesn't like loud noises or wet clothes, and he doesn't like to be apart from his beloved backpack.
Yeah, but he shows up whenever they have a mission to do.
Yeah.
He's a part of the problem solving. And I love that each one of the kids has something that they're good at, but something that they have an issue with. It makes me very happy. Okay, now on our last story for the day, I thought this was really heartwarming. There's a young man who's on the autism spectrum who is brilliant at making balloon sculptures. I don't know, Traven, if you were able to get the pictures, if you want to show them some of the pictures. But ever since the COVID emergency, he's been making these balloon sculptures.
Look at that.
Look
at that postal truck. Isn't that amazing? With the post office worker.
It's just, he is just absolutely, they call it his awesome, AUSOME talent, that he's able to do this. And then he does it just with so much joy, and then he does it very quickly. His name is Eddie Lynn. He's 22 years old. He's in New Jersey. And so he goes by the name Awesome Balloon Creator. And he's been doing these since he was 10. So we absolutely love it. And he's been making them for first responders. So I just absolutely love these. Have you got another picture? Is that the only one, Traven? It might be the only one. It might be. But I would encourage you, go online. This was a story that was in CNN. We're getting an echo again. I don't know.
I don't know why.
I don't know why either.
Am I okay?
I don't know. But it might have been somebody in your house watching. I don't know. But because as soon as the door shut, it stopped. But in any case, we are encouraging you to check out on CNN to check out all the other things that he does there. So we have an amazing guest who is with us today, and we already sort of teased that. Thomas Island is a wonderful, is he here with us already, Traven? Because if he is, you can have him join us. He is an amazing advocate, a self-advocate. He's a coach. He's an international speaker. I'm sorry, I've got papers galore. There he is, looking all handsome and COVID bearded.
Hi, Tom.
Good to see you.
Good morning. Good to have you with us.
Likewise.
I love all the sculptures that men are doing. They're like finding, and it's like, well, today, and of course I've done it on my head. I just like keep shaving my head. But everybody's finding, my son the other day came down with these like, Abraham Lincoln lamb chops.
Yep. Yeah, the lamb chops, I've done that too.
Right. Everybody's having such a good time with the grooming thing. But so you look handsome, you look good. And I was just mentioning that you do a lot of things, that you're an international speaker. And we got a bunch of things that we want to talk with you about, but I think we want to start with talking to you about autism and COVID-19. And what I know that you've got some things to say about what this is like for folks on the spectrum. Where do you want to start?
Well, and I know that with Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, and everything that's happening, I am happy to talk about any topic, be it something we plan to talk about or something that has come up. I am flexible as to what you want to ask.
Well, and maybe we should start there, Tom, since you brought it up, because I was just saying about how you and your mother have been at the forefront of teaching people how to teach individuals with different abilities to interact with the police.
Certainly.
But also training the police. You guys have been training the police too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And for those of the viewers that may not have seen or heard me speak before, I'm Tom Island. I'm on the autism spectrum, and a lot of work I've done for a long time, about 20 years. I've been talking to police officers, starting with the Los Angeles Police Department, about autism, sharing my story and having them see that this is what a person with autism can look like. And there was a comment earlier in the chat here that you can't see autism with the naked eye all the time. So for that young man that got shot in the Palestinian region, he may have looked like he didn't have anything going on, but it's what happened still happened. So my mother and I have been training LAPD officers. One day an officer said to us, Emily, that's my mother, I could know someone has autism, but if they run, I still have to chase them. And if they fight with me, I have to fight back and win. So who is teaching the young people to not run and not fight? And the answer was nobody. So my mother, being the proactive person she is, decided to take it upon herself to make an entire movie called Be Safe. Be Safe, the movie, has scenes, images, and movies of people behaving and acting positively and appropriately with police, because we have discovered, my mother and I, that training the police is not enough anymore. We also have to teach our young people about what the police expect, how to identify them, how to follow instructions. Even if someone doesn't speak, that doesn't mean they can't learn. And people with autism learn from watching movies. It sticks in their minds. They'll play it out the way they remember it to a T. And that has saved lives. And my mother and I recently had a discussion with mothers of Black boys, or MOB for short, to discuss how we can incorporate Be Safe into the African-American community and the kind of things they're going through on a daily basis.
And I love that you guys are working the equation from both sides. I do believe that there are, and I have to believe that the vast majority of police officers are people that are in, just like teachers, they're in it for the right reason. And I want to believe that these people are loving and accepting of our kids, and that they are not racist and out for an agenda. But we cannot deny that, and I will not deny that, watching that videotape and watching 4 people, just stand there casually, I just can't even. So I love it that we're providing training, because I do think that there is that police officer, the issue that they have, that when they're in a situation, they have to respond, right? Like you were saying, and I love that police officer saying, whether he's on the spectrum or not, I have to pursue, and I have to, so I do think it takes training on both sides. I suspect it's going to take a lot of policing, though, because we can teach somebody something, but if we don't ensure that they utilize it on both sides, then we're not going to reach the place where we need to reach. So I love, I've been a big fan and have endorsed Be Safe, the movie, and continue to do that. I think it's a really important thing for us all to share with all of our kids. Where can people go to get it, Tom?
So there's a website, www.besafethemovie.com. And you can order the DVD there. It has 7 episodes, 1 hour in total. There's also a Be Safe Teaching Edition, which has the movie and a 300-page curriculum on a CD-ROM with lessons, activities, and games, if you will, and the script of the movie episode. So you can print out the pages you want as many times as you want and use that in your lesson plans. And the movie has Spanish subtitles. The curriculum is available in Spanish because, in addition to African Americans, we look at the Latino community and the dangers that they may face. And we continue to train police. And my mother has the only evidence-based police training on autism in America. It was studied by PhD candidates, and the candidate data showed that officers were more competent and confident on how to handle people with autism after that training. It's called Experience Autism. So if you go to www.experienceautism.com, you can access the police training, www.besafethemovie.com for tools, items, products, services about teaching young people how to interact with the police with and without autism. This movie can help anybody, really. And police love it. It's like, we wish everyone knew what was in this movie.
Yeah, no, I do think it's important. And I want to say too, that if you're watching this and you're a parent and you're like, well, I wish my police department would do this. I think in almost all cases, it was driven partially by a parent, that a parent, takes, you have the ability and the right today to call your local police department and say, hey, on a day when you don't have as much going on this summer, can I come by with my child and have you meet my child, and can they tour the police department and see your squad cars and introduce your child on the spectrum to them and to the squad car, have them, talk to your child, have them ask questions. And while you're there, ask them and say, would you be interested? I know there's a great training. If I was to help you to connect with some people, would you guys be willing to do a training? And I think that's how it happens more often than not, is that somebody in the community is driving it and saying, here, I had the benefit that most of the time that my son was growing up, we lived in the same community as Tom and Emily. We've since moved away, but I had the benefit. So my police department was already trained. And what an amazing thing that was, that my police department was already trained. So, Emily did that for our community, do that for your community, and utilize what Emily created. And that Tom, you've been a part of it too, and you helped disseminate the message. And I don't want to belittle what you do, because you're a really important part of it, a part that the rest of us can't speak to, because it's that thing of nothing about us without us. And I think it's really important that your voice is in there being heard as well. So we love that. Check out Be Safe the movie. But now let's go back. And Nancy, anything I'm not letting you have an opportunity to speak.
No, I just want to reiterate how important it is to be aware of some of these safety best practices when dealing with the police. And this really can help young people know how to interact and how to keep themselves safe, which is so important.
And I just want to acknowledge some of the things people are writing in. Linda has said, thank you, Tom Island, for your good work. Rachel is saying, hi, Thomas. I think it's Raquel actually is saying, hi, Thomas. I think it's great to give information to our first responders. And Amanda says, that's great. So maybe now we can talk a little bit about COVID, because this has been hard on everyone, but I think it's particularly hard for people on the autism spectrum. There are some different things that are hard. Tom, talk to us about that.
And I'll kind of segue from Be Safe into COVID here, because prior to COVID, my mother and I would go around the country uniting local police departments with the people with autism and other learning differences in their community and bridge that gap and build that understanding. And the local news crews would cover it. The parents would be there on the sidelines watching the magic happen and unfold before their very eyes. So with COVID-19, we have not had the chance to have these gatherings and build the community that we want, but we are still giving webinars, virtual presentations, and still keeping the conversation going, even if we can't physically meet. On that note, I want to say that I think what's happening right now with the social isolation, the high degree of uncertainty, the anxiety resulting from said uncertainty, is the potential for a lesson in empathy for the world to see and feel what it's like to have autism right now. Because people with autism have grown up our entire lives being alone, socially isolated, maybe making our own fun in the house, not going outside or hanging out with people as much or at all, and also not knowing when this is going to be over, if things can be back to the way they were. All of that uncertainty that the whole world is feeling right now, this is how people with autism are on a daily basis. So this is a brief synopsis, if you will, of saying, let me say, welcome to our world.
Yeah, it's a great, interesting viewpoint, Tom. And I think it's important that people take a little introspection and take a look at that. It's interesting because some people are thriving in this environment and they're like, oh, it's so much easier to stay home. I'm okay staying home. I won't say that I'm thriving, but I do. I would rather just stay home the rest of my life. I would like to be able to. I would like to see other people. I would like to be able to hug other people. I miss everybody, but I don't ever want to leave my house. And people are writing in about their kids and saying the same thing. And for other people, this is interminable. And it's just like suffocating to them to not have that social in face to face. Like even like this is enough for me for a long time. At some point I would want to hug you guys, but this is enough for me to be talking with people and I can call people on the phone, but it isn't for other people. Other people are like, I'm not getting that social component that I need to feel my well-being. So, you know, it's not equal and even for everybody, but you say that there's a way that we can increase productivity during COVID. Talk to us about that. I'd like to get more done.
So I consider myself a bit of an extroverted introvert. So I like going outside, seeing what's out there, taking on new experiences, but I'm also all right chilling at home, making my own fun and building myself from the inside out. So with COVID-19 and not having as many physical or group sessions or speaking opportunities, I'm still setting goals for myself. And more importantly, I'm writing down what I want to accomplish. And I'm going to introduce something that I've started doing that could help anybody that wants to continue to be productive or help yourself to know what you want to do and get things accomplished, even if you're not leaving the house. So you may have heard of vision boards. Like you take magazine clippings, you put them onto a board and it envisions like, this is what my future is going to be like. This is what I picture for myself. Well, I'd like to introduce to you vision carding. Vision carding. What I'm doing is every month I'm identifying 5 goals and writing them down on the cards here.
I'm trying to see what they say, but
it's June, so that's June, and then we get into July, goal 1 of 5, all the way. The months go by all the way to the end of December, goal 5 of 5. So as I complete the goals, I toss the card.
Okay.
And I have them here on my coffee table, so it's like, okay, I have to provide these items to this person, or this is something I'm going to do to build my business. This is a book I'm going to read by the end of the month. And speaking of books, I've been doing a lot more reading and less TV since COVID took place. I no longer watch TV during the day. I'm reading books. I have a whole shelf of them, and I'm starting to really look at myself and see where I want to go.
I'm curious what you like to read, Tom. I picture you being a self-help book person, that you're reading through self-help books, but is there, what is your genre? What do you love to read?
Personal development and self-help books. I just finished Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. It's a very empowering book. I'll grab the one I'm reading off my coffee table here. My brother got me this one for Christmas, and I'm reading. It's called Thinking in Systems by Donna Meadows. So I'm starting to look at how connected we are in society, what is needed to make a system work, the elements, the processes, the outcome, or the purpose. How is that going to work, and how can I incorporate systems to increase my influence in the world, if you will?
Yeah. Now, Nancy, I used to read self-help and, you know, that self-actualization, kind of that genre that you're talking about. I used to read those all the time, Nancy, and I can't remember the last time that I got a self-help book. How about you? Do you?
Yeah, I'm reading a lot of novels right now. I've been going through about 2 to 3 novels every 2 weeks.
That's amazing.
So yeah, but I used to read a lot of self-help books, and Tom, you're kind of inspiring me to go back there. The Tony Robbins book sounds really interesting. Unlimited Potential. It's a good time to set personal goals. A really good time to set personal goals.
It is. And I love the idea. I love the idea of putting them on the cards. I think the last self-help book that I read was The Power of Positive Thinking. And in that, they tell you to put draw a picture on a card, on 3 cards, and put it in different places where you'll run across it all the time.
Right.
And so that you'll be reminded that that's something that you want. I have those cards. But I like yours too, Tom, that, you know, that there's like 5, is it 5 per month?
5 per month, yes.
And then you toss it when you do it. So can you get, I don't want to get too personal, but can you give us an example of a card that you've been able to toss?
Yes, I recently competed in a Toastmasters contest. It's called the International Speech Contest. It's 5 to 7 minute speeches of what I want to tell the world. And I won at my club level and I won at my area level. The next level was division. I unfortunately did not win that. And so I wouldn't be winning the district contest. So I had to toss the cards that obviously wouldn't be happening. But the cards that I have accomplished, I was able to secure a nomination for a very prestigious award that I've been nominated for through a nonprofit called Junior Chamber International, or JCI, Junior Chamber International. It's a humanitarian organization. Its members are age 18 to 40, and they have a program called 10 Outstanding Young Americans, or TOYA for short, 10 Outstanding Young Americans. And I'm gonna find out if I win that in October. I've been nominated for that award. So that's a big iron in the fire I've got. I've also, through COVID-19, something that I accomplished, I've established what's called an advisory group, a business advisory group. My siblings and I are looking to have my financial independence be a priority, have a business to call my own a priority. So we have Tom's Business Advisory Group, or TBAG for short. We call it TBAG, Tom's Business Advisory Group. So they'll give me action items like develop a business plan, provide these items to us, or tell us what you would like in X, Y, and Z. And I write that down and then give it to them. And then we discuss it once a week or every other week on Zoom like this. So I can start to develop a business for myself and have my own money and be able to cut myself away from my parents in that sense. They support me. Like, I live in a condo that they own, but I pay them rent every month. But I know my parents one day are not going to be here, and I need to be able to fly with my own wings.
Yeah, I love that. And you know, it's just like having a board of directors. You got to be answerable to people, and we all are, whether we realize it or not. I love that. People are writing in and saying that they are loving reading too, lots of novels, from fiction to things like How Can I Talk If My Lips Don't Move, which was one of the things that Temple Grandin recommended that we read. I got to be honest with you, I have had the same. I got a book out because I have boxes of books that I want to read, right? And I got a book out like day one of the, you know, the isolation, and was like, oh, I love to read, but when I read to the distraction of everything else. Like I don't want to put it down, and I want to do, so I wait till I've got a little bit of time. I have not had time. I have not gotten to page 2 on that novel. I'm so jealous of all of you who have time to read. Okay. Someone is saying also the millions of specialist appointments that aren't nearby. It's free. So I love that providers can see my son in his home environment. And they said also the millions of specialists that aren't nearby. Many people have written in and said that they're getting to get telehealth appointments with experts that they couldn't have seen in person. What a great way to be productive during this emergency. I love that. And they say that I love the telehealth appointments. And somebody else said, this is rough for me, especially the way our school year ended. I miss being with my K-3 students with autism, because it's their classroom. There's been a lot of things that have been hard. Tom, what's been the hardest, and if you don't want to answer, don't, but what's been the hardest part of this isolation for you?
No, I'm happy to answer the questions. So the hardest part I've found was, and still is more or less ongoing, where my next paycheck is going to come from. But that's sort of an entrepreneurial caveat as it is. What I was able to discover through my own networking and through an actual random act of kindness, because I found that by forming a new schedule, new routines, or new ideas, more and better things are starting to come my way. So when I wouldn't know where the next paycheck was, I was talking with someone. She told me to file for what's called pandemic unemployment assistance with the California Employment Development Department. I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, don't you have to be laid off to get unemployment? And she says, no, you can be self-employed, still file. And if you can show that your business was substantially impacted by this pandemic, you could get some money for that. I said,
Wow.
all right. So I e-filed, sent in my claim. About a week later, they're saying, you're getting thousands of dollars every so often, and here's a debit card we're going to load the money onto. So
Nice.
I had all that uncertainty, like, oh my God, I'm going to run out of money. I'm going to be bone dry. But I found another way to keep myself above water. And it's ironic. I may actually be making more from this pandemic unemployment assistance than I did in all the other speaking engagements I was doing. So I'm going to do my best to wean off of that, or when the claim is done, I'm going to launch myself in another direction. But that is definitely the hardest part, is not being able to be in front of an audience, touch people on that level, be there physically with them, and be able to earn my keep. So I think that's been my hardest challenge, if you will, at this point.
There you go. Nancy, what's been the hardest part of this for you? You've been looking at this a little differently.
Right. I think it's been watching Wyatt, my son, have difficulties adjusting to not being in his regular schedule. As a child on the spectrum, he loves to have his regular activities and the things he counts on. And he just didn't understand when that was literally pulled away from him like a rug underneath him with no warning. Not being able to go to baseball, basketball, tutoring, karate, and having to do everything on Zoom. And not his main way of socializing was at school. So not having those things was a real hard adjustment for him. So that's the thing that's affected me most in this.
Yeah. And for me, I think the hardest thing about this has been that I've not been able to be with a few of my friends that like physically would have liked to have been with my friends, like Joanne Lara. And that, you know, because I have health risk factors, you know, we took the isolation very seriously, and because she has health risk, we took it very seriously. But that's been the hardest thing for me. So, you know, it's interesting how different it is for different people, depending on, you know, what your circumstances and where you are in your life. They're saying to you, Amanda has said, good luck to you, Thomas, and all that you do. And, you know, we don't know when this is going to end, but we should let people know that you are doing webinars like Be Safe the Movie, and you are available to speak via long distance. And I'm sure, you know, people are starting to get with it. And I'm sure that there are plenty of opportunities. I just got to do a keynote online, and I'm hoping that you're going to have those opportunities to do them online as well. And Tom is a great speaker, you guys.
Tom, what do you usually speak on? What are the topics you normally present on when you're doing your public speaking?
I talk about personal development as well as professional development, or what we call in the book that my mother and I wrote, Come to Life, we call it self-discovery. So I give keynotes about self-discovery. This is about knowing yourself, loving yourself, and being yourself. This is what people with autism need to hear. This is what parents, caregivers, allies of people with autism need to hear. So I give talks about that. I'm also a certified human potential coach. So I can ask you questions and do consultations, keynotes about how you can realize your full and true potential, really discover and tap into your own power and make the world a better place from it, regardless of the walk of life you may be from. And I've found some of my clients, in addition to people with autism, have been entrepreneurs, people that were in a corporate setting like I was. I'm a CPA, and I left corporate America to do this full time. And people are starting to come to me, how did you get yourself through that transition? Or I'm thinking of leaving this financial job to do this, which is what I'm passionate about. What can we talk about with that? So that's how I'm available and how I'm continuing to make a difference virtually in the world. Even if I can't meet you face to face, that is what I can offer.
Well, I wish you could see what they're writing in, or maybe you can see. So Lori Hartdorf, and so glad that you're here with us, said awesome, and she said you can fly, Thomas.
Oh, thank you.
They're all saying fly, Thomas, fly.
She's a good friend of mine, Lori Hartdorf. Good to hear from her.
And they're saying good for you. Amanda says good for you, Thomas. Getting it done. So we absolutely love that. We're just about out of time here, but talk to us, Tom, about where we can go to find out more about you, more about Be Safe the movie, more about the book Come to Life. Where can we go?
So to summarize at the beginning, we had besafethemovie.com. That's for the movie tools, products, and services to help people with and without autism learn how to interact with the police. That's besafethemovie.com. We had experienceautism.com for police training and events related to training the police about autism. We have my website, which is thomasisland.com, where you can order Come to Life, book me for a presentation. I do take virtual presentations. And I'm in the process of forming my own business. So one day I'll be launching a website, it's not up yet, called cometolifecoaching.com. You know, life coaching? Well, this will be cometolifecoaching.com one day. And that's where I'm going to be flying to.
You will be flying. Well, Thomas, we just so enjoy having you here with us and the work that you do. It's so important right now. You've been doing a lot of live feeds too on Facebook, I've noticed.
And this is something, and this, we were talking about like forming new schedules, new habits, new routines for people with autism. So I knew I couldn't go out physically and give speeches, but I wanted to create new habits and new schedules and new routines for myself. So I decided every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m., 1 p.m., and 4 p.m. respectively, I would go on Facebook Live, I pose a question or a topic for discussion, and I tell a little story or share my own experiences with that topic. And then I put it out there, okay, so tell me, what do you know about this? Or what's your experience with this? So I continue the thought and the conversation, even if we're not meeting in person. I'm also, if we want to talk a little bit about physical health, I'm eating out only once a week now. I used to do it frequently. I'm only eating out once a week now. And I've lost about 15 pounds in the last 3 months.
Good
So
for you.
improving my
You
health.
know what?
Eating more fruits and veggies.
Yeah, I'm really starting to feel like a slacker here, Thomas.
Nancy, are you eating out a lot through this?
No, we're not. We've been cooking at home during this whole pandemic. It's really opened up. We've been doing a lot of vegetarian dishes.
Yeah, well, I went vegan in the middle of all this because Anita Lesko encouraged me to, and I've been cooking up a storm. And my husband has lost weight through this. We've not ordered a single thing from a restaurant since this started. My husband has lost a few pounds. My son has dropped like 10 pounds. I have not lost a single ounce. I'm holding it all in case of emergency, I guess. And I'm
still vegan though. How is the transition to being vegan been?
You know, for me, it wasn't that hard because I was vegan for most of my adult life and at least vegetarian for most of my adult life. I had only gone back to chicken and fish and turkey like 4.5, 5 years ago. So it wasn't hard for me. I was just like, oh, okay, now I'm not going to have chicken. It's a little bit hard in terms of what we instituted at the house is that they could, you know, the boys could eat whatever they wanted for breakfast and lunch, but that I would make dinner and dinner would be vegan. And that was a little bit harder because it's so much easier to cook for them if there's meat involved. I had to be a little bit more creative because I love my vegetables. I got to be a little bit more creative to get them to eat their vegetables. And so we kind of have relaxed on that a little bit, that some nights it's free for all and they cook for themselves and then they can cook meat. But that was the hardest part. For me personally, it's not been hard. What's been harder is, and I haven't been completely successful, is that Anita's diet wants you to go off of all oils. And so I've gotten off of everything except for olive oil. And I just am having a little bit of olive oil from time to time, but I can't live without my olive oil. And the other thing is that you got to go off all of the vegan cheese. And I'm all about my vegan cheese now. So
why do you have to go off vegan cheese?
Because it's got a bunch of like ingredients in it that are not what's ideal.
Okay.
She encourages you to make your own vegan cheese, but that's a lot of nuts. And
what do you cook with if you don't use oils?
You know, she turned me on to this because I was like, how can you make vegetables with no oil? And she said, no. And I've got her book, and it details it greatly. You just have to have a little bit of vegetable broth or water.
Okay.
And you get the pan. I have my good cast iron pan. You get the pan good and hot, and you put the vegetables in, and they sweat on their own first, and you get a nice little bit of caramelization thing going, and then you throw in either a little bit of water or a little bit of I've got this great organic veggie broth that I get now that's low sodium. Throw that in there, and if you want, you're building your base for whatever your flavor is. So sometimes soy sauce, other times other things, maybe a little lemon juice. See, you get me talking about food. We could go on forever. But it's great, and that part of it nobody has minded at all. But I'm still having the vegan cheese, and I think Anita's going to throw me out if I don't get it together. But I gotta have the vegan cheese. But we were talking about Anita Lesko's book. I don't think I have it here with me, but she's got many books, but you should check out her book.
Maybe while you're searching for that, one thing that I've done that's given me a little bit of variety and also supports small businesses. Every Tuesday, I go to a local restaurant in my town and I take a picture of the food that I order. So recently I went to an Indian restaurant, and before that I went to an English restaurant. Before that I went to a Mexican restaurant. So I've got variety of all the different places I'm going to and supporting small business, and they're showing their gratitude. I got this card from an English restaurant in town saying thank you for your business, and they're still keeping themselves afloat through this pandemic. So I encourage people to support small business and not focus on those corporate fast food chains all the time, because I've taken out the corporate fast food in my diet, and it's helping me big time.
Okay, they're asking Traven to pin the websites, and Traven, if you have the opportunity to do that, go through them one more time, Tom.
Sure.
And there's already somebody watching the show who would like for you to be on their show.
I love it. That's why I'm doing this. So the websites again, Traven, we have besafethemovie.com for the tools and services that help young people interact with the police and be safe with the police. Experienceautism.com for police training. That's evidence-based police training on autism. And finally, thomasisland.com. And there's no S in island. I know people, they hear island, they think Rhode Island and spell it out like that, but there's no S in my last name. So thomasisland.com for Come to Life and my services.
There we go. Okay, so we are well and truly out of time now, but I thank you guys for being here. I want to remind everybody to check out, I wasn't able to find Anita's book. It must be on the other bookshelf, but you can look her up, AnitaLesko.com. And but check out all of Thomas's things. And don't forget that later on today, if you are a friend of Joanne Laura, we're doing the celebration of life. To celebrate her life. It was her birthday on Wednesday. She wanted to have this party today. She's in the hospital. We don't get to have it with her, but we're going to have it with her virtually. So that's at the Ed Asner Family Center. Go to their Facebook page. It starts at the show. The center at home starts at 3 o'clock. The tribute to Joanne will start at 3:20. We understand that there is the potential for some celebrities, and Nancy and I will be there. So tune in for that. Thank you guys for being here. We'll be back with the show on Monday. Don't let me forget to tell you that we have Temple Grandin on Tuesday's show, and she's going to be talking about specifically the topic of how do we find and feed our kids' passions. So that's going to be super cool. She'll be live with us on Tuesday morning. We got Bonnie Yates on Monday, and the rest of the week I'll clue you in on Monday. But until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good
Bye-bye,
weekend.
Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you, Tom.
You.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.